Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben.
This is Diego Sanchez, Randy Couture,
Alistair Overeem.
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner.
This is Don Fry.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to Submission Radio, episode 193. Dennis Stratov here with Kasper Ozolowski. It's Wednesday, 17th of July. And Kas, I feel like I'm saying this every week, but I am genuinely excited for the lineup we have on the episode today.
Dude, you couldn't have said it better. We have had a sexy run, courtesy of yourself, organizing these delicious guests, especially over the last few weeks. I feel like we're on a good run. We're getting some momentum. And the Submission Radio train, choo-choo, motherfuckers, it rolls on. It rolls on for another week. Wait till you get a load of who we've got this week. Robert Whittaker, the UFC middleweight champ, the pride of Australia, coming back to Submission Radio. We had a fantastic chat with him last time when he came on the program. A lot of people didn't know that he was into anime, so there's a lot of things to talk to him about. This time around, of course, Israel Adesanya. And I feel like when he comes on the program, there's good rapport, and he's like an onion. There's layers to him, and each time he comes on, we peel off a few layers. We discover interesting things. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to ask him about, so it's going to be an interesting interview. Kevin Lee returns to the program. Bit of a hiatus from Submission Radio. Not intentional, but we haven't had the chance to speak to Kevin in a while. Obviously, he's coming off that loss to RDA, so we want to see how Kevin's doing. He's a bit secretive, doesn't post a lot on social media, so we want to see what the man's been up to, how he's going. Of course, the welterweight division is as crazy as it's ever been. Obviously, Jorge Masvidal knocking out Ben Askren. Leon Edwards taking on RDA this weekend. What better guy to get a preview and a prediction on for that fight, and a whole bunch of other ones. So Kevin Lee on the program. Justin Willis has been calling out Tai Tuivasa for a long time. Those guys have had some back and forth. I think it's still quite unclear on where Justin Willis's future lays. Is he in the UFC? Is he not in the UFC? So we want to get him on the program. There's a lot of things to talk to him about. Aljamain Sterling wasn't too pleased with Urijah Faber calling for Henry Cejudo and people sort of getting on that train and that bandwagon this past weekend. UFC Sacramento. So we've got Aljamain Sterling to talk about a whole bunch of things. Urijah Faber, Henry Cejudo, and just the division in general. What is going on? When does he want to fight next? And also Jon Anik, a good friend Jon Anik, who had a birthday a few weeks ago. It was on the 3rd of July, so unfortunately between the Hall of Fame ceremony, International Fight Week, calling pay-per-views and doing a million other things, I don't think he got the proper celebration. So, the main purpose is just to see how Jon Anik is doing, really. And of course, we'll talk about fighting as well. So he's going to be the first on the program, so that's going to be fun.
Yeah, man, all these guys, I can't wait to speak to. And just quickly, Cass, something big happened to me this week. Very, very quickly. Vince from Entourage, you and me love Entourage. He had a joke. He said it on the Joe Ferrer podcast. There's this coffee machine down Chapel Street, which is the big street down in Melbourne where everybody does stuff. And I've been meaning to get a joke on there for a while. All the jokes are on there, sort of, kind of cringy jokes. But it's hard to get a joke on there. Big news this week. I stole Vince's joke and got that joke up on the coffee machine. Of course, taking all of the credit for that, so a big shout out to Vince and Jerry Ferrara for that. The joke is, Cass, have you heard about the kidnapping?
No.
He woke up. So there you guys go. Check that. Check
that was Adrian Granier's joke.
Adrian Granier, thank you very much for the joke. If you hear this, we did steal it. We are here in Australia, and there's nothing you can do about it, brother. Check it out at Amici down on Chapel Street. And Cass, people will check out this T-shirt right here if you're watching the video stream of the podcast on YouTube. You'll see I'm wearing my sexy Submission Radio T-shirt. I wear this T-shirt to combat a tough day, and I wear it today because we have a massive, massive announcement. If you would have followed our social media, Cass, which a lot of people do, they would have seen that we have some limited edition, and I mean this limited edition. This is a limited time only merchandise offering from Submission Radio with some sexy new designs that you created, which I am super pumped about. They are sort of inspired by some Aussie classics. And Cass, I mean, how would you describe this new addition to the Submission Radio merchandise store? What's happening?
Well, I would say that if you wear these T-shirts, you would probably feel like a pretty happy little Vegemite, right? I mean, these. I'm just saying that's just describing the way that you would be feeling wearing some of these T-shirts. These, for anyone living in Australia, I mean, the colors, the looks, they're very iconic. And I know that some of these Submission Radio logos, people, I guess, identify them with Australia very much so. And I know a lot of our friends over in America, they can't, get to some of these things and products, so to speak, but you can get these Submission Radio t-shirts with the iconic logos and iconic colors. So, like Dennis said, limited edition t-shirts. They are shipping worldwide. Everybody can get them. There is a short schedule of how long they'll be available for, so I guess get them while stocks last.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that. People are going to write in, hey, I really like the t-shirt, but then you kind of wait on it. You put it in the cart, you come back, you look at the cart, you go, do I want anything else? By the way, socks, beach towels, indoor pillows.
Yeah.
Snazz up that room. Forget about the blockhouse rules or whatever sort of weird building show that you watch. Put the Submission Radio pillow in there, set a standard for your living room. But what else we've got? Mugs, a whole range of things, crew necks, we've got hoodies, all sorts of stuff. So jump on that. And again, it's a limited time offer. It will be till the end of August. And don't contact us after the end of August. Right, Cass? Don't send us messages. Don't send us DMs. It'll be gone. So jump on it right now. If you want to get it as a present, we recommend jumping on, buying it now while stocks last. Stocks are limited. And also, the OG Submission Radio t-shirt that I'm wearing is available in some very, very, very comfortable hoodies. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey, my girlfriend, my wife is a huge fan of Submission Radio, but she doesn't want to wear these manly t-shirts. She doesn't want to be ridiculed by her friends. Well, we've got some women's comfort tees as well. So we've thought about everybody here. Look snazzy and surprise your family with a Submission Radio flair at your next event.
Well, just quickly, like I've because we select everything for this apparel, and we selected the best possible options for the apparel. So, for example, the t-shirts, you can go the original tee, the cotton tee, like the super soft tee, or the tri-blend tee. I mean, the word on the street is that tri-blend is the best. Nothing but the best for our listeners and for our fans. So everything, like the hoodies, you can go the regular hoodie or the premium hoodie. We've selected the premium hoodie, and we make like almost nothing off of this merch. It's not there to make us rich, and it absolutely never will. We've kept all the prices on Teespring default. Never raised any of them to make it affordable for you guys, and we're not really making anything of it. It's just for you guys to enjoy.
That's right. And if you do get some merch, tag us in your post, chuck it online, show off that sexy new look. The snaz is in town. Show it off, and we'll retweet it. We'll mention it. We'll get it out there because we love seeing our listeners in the latest Submission Radio merchandise. So with that, Cass, before you mention the social media, just quickly, a reminder to everybody at home, I am wearing the Mark Hughes Foundation beanie. The money goes towards helping solve this horrible thing that is brain cancer. And if you're local as well and you're feeling like, all right, I want to get some Submission Radio merch, but I also want to help out an important cause, jump on, grab your Mark Hughes beanie.
Yeah, that's right. I will be introducing the first guest just shortly. Reminder, the lineup is Jon Anik first, Aljamain Sterling, Justin Willis, Kevin Lee, and Robert Whittaker last at the end of the show. But as you mentioned, social media, of course, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Submission Radio, and of course on Facebook at Submission Radio AUS. Our DMs are open. You can message us anytime. Like Dennis said, if you're going to message us after August, though, about the t-shirts, I'm afraid that they're limited edition. There's nothing that can be done about that.
That's right. You'll have to look on eBay. You'll have to look on, different auction sites because it is going to be a collector's item. Cassie mentioned it. Big show. I can't wait to get into it. I'm not going to lie. I am super excited for this episode. Our next guest that is on the line is a longtime friend of the program, but also someone that's been absolutely killing it in the MMA game, and you're about to introduce him.
All right, guys. Our next guest is a UFC commentator and the lead play-by-play voice on ESPN Pay-Per-View and ESPN Plus, the co-host of the Anik and Florian podcast. He joins us on the show almost 2 weeks removed from his birthday. Join us in giving him a happy birthday and a warm welcome to the one and only Jon Anik. Welcome back to Submission Radio. How are you, man?
Fellas, I'm doing well. Appreciate the intro. Always good to be with you. How are you guys doing?
Oh, very well, especially now that you're on the program. And we're going to ask you, man. Let's get to the serious questions first. You're having a birthday on July 3rd. I mean, that must never really work out for you time-wise because July 4th is a big thing over there in America. But a couple of weeks ago, you had the task of doing the UFC International Fight Week, hosting the Hall of Fame ceremony, commentating UFC 239. So the big question is, did you manage to find a moment to have a birthday celebration with the family?
Well, we did a little something the night before, and then after the fact, I stuffed my fat face. But, I think when you work for the UFC, you're conditioned to knowing that this is going to be the biggest fight week of the year. International Fight Week, almost always since I've been here, has taken place that first week of July. And I think as you get older, if you don't really like your birthday, it kind of works out. And certainly when your birthday is July 3rd as an American, it's always buried by the 4th of July. So I had no issue with it. And it's crazy. You know, I've always hoped that the UFC would own the summer, because here in the States, we're kind of lean and dark during the summer when it comes to football. And obviously the NBA has had a big summer in terms of free agency, but there's a ripe opportunity for the UFC, at least domestically here in the States, to own the summer. And we're in a stretch right now doing 9 live events in as many weeks, and they've all been great. So we like owning the summer, and we're busy, but we'd have it no other way.
And International Fight Week was absolutely a massive one. Just quickly, what was it like hosting that stacked Hall of Fame ceremony and experiencing an earthquake while Rashad was doing his speech? That was something different.
That was certainly something different, and Rashad, as we've come to expect, couldn't have handled it any better. You know, backstage, They were just kind of telling us to grab a pole or just hold on to something, and it subsided shortly thereafter. But, you know, to the UFC security's credit, they came back out about 5 minutes later and went through a little exit strategy and told us which stairs to go to in the event that there was another tremor type thing. But that certainly added an interesting backdrop to the Hall of Fame ceremony. And it's always an honor for me to have the chance to do that. It's a very different skill set, I think, than what I'm used to doing, sort of veins popping out of my neck, calling fights.
Yeah.
It's a very stoic, formal environment, and it's a unique challenge for me. You know, I have been up in front of a class. I did teach broadcasting for a time, but it's a public speaking gig that is sort of foreign to me right now, given my day-to-day. So it's always an honor. Obviously, the class was loaded. You know, tough act to follow with Ronda Rousey the year before, but any class headlined by Michael Bisping is good in my book. So we had a good time with it. And I think the coolest moment for me was just seeing Mike backstage as his wife is just crushing it. I mean, if you watched it, Rebecca Bisping stole the show. You know, she looked like she had been a news orator for years, and seeing Mike's raw emotion brought to tears backstage will be my lasting memory of that night. So, yeah, it was special, as it always is.
And of course, his wife an Australian, so we're not taking any credit for it.
Yeah,
but we kind of are, Jon Anik. Speaking of unbelievable moments as well, I mean, let's get onto UFC 239, because we have to bring up your reaction to the Jorge Masvidal KO over Ben Askren. The footage of you, Joe, and Paul is classic. The best bit was about how you weren't even done speaking about the sponsor when it all went down. Then Joe and Paul basically just sit there with a huge shock on their face, not really saying much. But of course, it's your job to keep going and talking in a moment of pure shock. Take us into that. I mean, what's happening in your mind as you see Masvidal knock out Ben Askren in that crazy, crazy way? You're midway through just beginning commentating the fight, and then everyone goes quiet, and they're like, John, and probably in your earpiece, they're like, John, say something. We need to keep things going over here. What goes on in a moment like that?
Well, I think anyone who has been in an arena for a UFC live event, and specifically a championship fight, can understand that tension. And I guess if your team is playing in a big game like a Super Bowl situation in the NFL, you feel that tension, and some of it's sort of unwelcome, right? We all put so much stock into this as UFC and mixed martial arts fans that when it comes time for a championship fight, we're all fans first. And even though silence at times can be golden, right? We're not necessarily trying to be silent throughout a title fight, but there are certain times where there's a feeling out process and you want to let the action breathe, let the moment marinate, let the crowd intervene a little bit. But in this particular instance, man, I mean, and that's not even a long sponsor read. You know, I'm barely through it. I see out of the corner of my eye this result, this body. I didn't see the knee as much as I looked up to see Askren's body. And so I think I followed up with something Askren stiff as a board. But just an incredible result for a man in Jorge Masvidal who has donated and dedicated a lifetime to the game. You know, I met him Bellator 1 in 2009.
Wow.
And you know, of course, he hasn't been finished since that crazy inverted triangle choke by Toby Imada. That was in 2009, a little bit later in the year. But it's an incredible story that he would become this welterweight title contender at this stage of his career, nearly 50 fights in. And he's done so many things the right way. Super happy for him. It was a mistake by Ben Askren. I hope he wants to come back, even though he'll have to table the championship aspiration, at least in the near term. But I hope Askren will come back and really try to cement his legacy in the UFC, because at least right now, I think for those who questioned Askren's body of work, they have a little bit of ammunition, but he's a real problem, and there are a lot of winnable fights for him in the top 10, and he'll be back strong. Handle the loss with class, but hey, I mean, we're sitting here July 16th, 2019, and I think knockout of the year is certainly going to go to Gamebred, and, fighter of the year, I think Masvidal is the early favorite for sure.
I think with Askren, people always are intrigued by the return. I mean, even Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz, people are always curious, how someone comes back, and that's going to be the story in Askren's next fight. But yeah, with Masvidal, talk about, late in life success. I think hardcore fans always love Masvidal because he always had that, Miami cool vibe about him. But I think this KO helped because it went so viral. It helped the casuals kind of latch on and be like, wow, who is this guy? This guy's awesome. How would you describe his star power at this point? Because, he's not a guy that anybody ever really saw as a star in the UFC as much as a very, very good fighter. And now he's certainly got a case for it.
Well, right, and he's done it all organically the right way. I think part of the reason why some might have questioned the ceiling in terms of his star power is because he's not going to, go out and chase it, right? He's not going to engage on social media 15 hours a day, right? He's not going to necessarily attend a press conference just because Askren wants a platform to go at him. He's going to go about it the right way. But to piggyback this off of the Darren Till knockout is just a huge result for Jorge Masvidal. And when you do know the man, as some of us have gotten to over the course of the last 5 or 10 years, you know that he's the real article, right? What you see is what you get. And he certainly now has Miami, which is a rabid MMA market behind him more so than ever before. Not that he didn't before. I mean, if you've seen some of the videos of the way Miami and the 305 reacted, he has support down here. I live in South Florida. But this takes it to a whole different level. And to produce a result like this against an undefeated Ben Askren, you cut the line, right? I mean, title shot's got to be next, right? It's the ultimate highlight, and I couldn't be happier for George. And you got to think Kamaru Usman's probably going to be next, depending on, what happens on August 3rd with his best friend Colby Covington.
Very fascinating situation. I'm interested to see what happens. I think you mentioned Masvidal versus Usman. Big fight. Let's talk about quickly Jon Jones as well, because he had a much more difficult sort of night out at the office than people thought when he fought Thiago Santos. Some people had Santos winning that fight. Others believe Jon Jones sort of cruised to victory, was able to win in an area where Santos was, super dangerous and chose not to take that fight to the ground. Where do you sit on the sort of Jon Jones performance that you saw cage side as you were commentating at UFC 239? Some people are very critical of Jon Jones. Did you have him winning the fight?
It's tough for me sitting there calling the fight to really go round by round. I think the deciding round might have been round 2 for a lot of people. And I hate when people trot out the phrase, to be the champion, you have to beat the champion, because as a mixed martial arts judge, you have to score a round based upon its own merits and really try to isolate those 5 minutes. That being said, if you boys are sitting there as a judge and you've given Thiago Santos the first round, as most of us did, you got to have some stones to come back with a 10-9 for Santos in round 2, right? So I'm not saying that I would ever give Jon Jones a round just because he's the champion. But as Chael Sonnen said to me, and I wholly agree with it, you do need a little bit of courage as a judge, especially after you've given Maheta round 1. All of that being said, I think so much of the narrative became Thiago Santos's leg when we didn't maybe give enough attention to Jon Jones being sort of a one-legged fighter. And he put on a great poker face, and his head movement and his defensive ability with his upper body is absolutely outstanding. No sort of swelling up top for Jon Jones, but he had a harder time getting out of the octagon than Thiago Santos did, with Santos's knee ripped apart. So I think that was a big part of why Jones maybe lacks some aggression, maybe lacks some grappling aggression, which I know surprised a lot of people, that there was the one takedown attempt in round 1 and none thereafter. That was certainly surprising to a lot of us. But again, no issue with a scorecard either way. Happy to see Jon continue his greatness. But the story for me in this fight is absolutely Thiago Santos. Most of us have seen his entire 19-fight UFC career. And when you get a championship opportunity, with respect to Anthony Smith, who I know has been a recent guest on your program, look what Thiago Santos did with that opportunity compared to what Lionheart did with it. So a lot of us expected Maheta would really seize that chance. I think he certainly did. And I got an appetite for a rematch. I know it's not happening anytime soon, but I don't know that Thiago Santos could have sort of given a better showcase of himself on one leg than he did that night,
And just such a shame that he hurt his knee to the extent that he did. And he's going to be out for a little bit. And he'll, I suppose, have to fight a couple of times before he fight Jon Jones again. Just quickly, Jon, on the topic, you're a betting man. Do you think we see Jones versus DC in December if DC gets past Stipe? Would you bet on it?
Oh, December's tough. I think December is ambitious, right, in terms of DC, because I think for Cormier at 40 years old, and he's happy to spin it forward and have the conversation about the Jon Jones fight. But as his friend, I can tell you, the focus is on getting through this training camp and getting through the Stipe fight. So it's hard to envision him making that type of turnaround, given what's ahead of him over the next 4 weeks as he gets ready for Stipe. Certainly for Jon Jones, if the fight's going to be at heavyweight, that could affect his timeline because he would want to add muscle mass. If DC's cutting down to 205 pounds, I think December becomes very ambitious. So it may not happen before we close the book on 2019, but I think it was nice to see Jon, after the win over Santos, seem to have more of an appetite for the trilogy fight, maybe in either division, than he did a few weeks prior.
Smart. Makes a lot of sense. I love your use of the word ambitious as well. Obviously, we got to ask about Urijah Faber getting a massive win this past weekend. I think you'll appreciate this as a betting man. Obviously, he was a pretty decent underdog. Ricky Simone being quite the not heavy favorite, but pretty decent favorite. And Urijah Faber beating him in such quick fashion. Now people are talking about him versus potentially Henry Cejudo. Where do you sit on this debate? Obviously, Urijah Faber being a big name, but a lot of people think, hey, what about guys like Aljamain Sterling or Petr Yan? Where do you stand on it, John?
I stand with Aljamain Sterling, and I think it's the popular opinion right now. He is a clear number one bantamweight contender, even if he doesn't have the number one next to his name. I think the big question is what Henry Cejudo's immediate future is going to hold. Is he going to defend the flyweight title, as I think Dana White would like to see him do against a very deserving Joseph Benavidez, or is he going to defend this bantamweight belt? And if he's going to defend it bantamweight, it's got to be Aljo. Petr Yan certainly is on his heels. I think for Urijah, it's a strike while the iron is hot situation. Certainly he was offensive and he went for it, and all credit to him in knocking out Ricky Simone in 46 seconds. I just think not only is it a tough line to cut, it is a long line in one of the UFC's deepest divisions with guys who clearly have established themselves as top contenders. So I think for Faber, there are certainly big fights, maybe Rob Font in a co-main event slot in Boston if that show comes together in October. Some have suggested a John Dodson fight or a Jimmy Rivera rematch. I wouldn't blame Faber for, aiming for the stars as he has done, but I think Aljo is going to be the guy, certainly if Cejudo's next defense is at 135 pounds.
Absolutely. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens there next. Just quickly, John, before we wrap things up, we've got a couple more questions. First of which, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this rivalry between Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya. Obviously, Rob was on the program this week, and over here it's been kind of the hot feud, New Zealand, Australia. Kind of hard to tell which side who's on because Rob is technically Kiwi, all that kind of stuff. He's Aussie as well. But what's your take on this feud that you saw sort of take to the next level during International Fight Week? And looking at this fight as it stands, very, very hard fight to sort of predict, but who are you leaning towards at this point after seeing what you've seen thus far from both men?
Well, first, I just have to say, I cannot possibly tell you my level of excitement for this fight, wherever it goes down, and certainly October 5th is coming up quickly. But this has a Super Bowl feel for me. I can't imagine what it's like for you guys. Obviously, you set up the bloodlines and some of that stuff. I think Adesanya is going to try to poke the bear a little bit when it comes to Whittaker, especially in a setting like that when the adrenaline is flowing. I think if the first time these guys were together was a more intimate environment, maybe it wouldn't have gone down that path. But Whittaker's just, he's the most dangerous man in the world, obviously at 185 pounds, but he's such a pure-hearted individual. And my encounters with him have always been so consistent and respectful. And I just think so highly of both of these guys that it's so cool to see them sort of go at it a little bit. And it's almost like until the octagon door closes behind them, I won't believe that this fight is actually going to happen. But obviously Adesanya poses a lot of different problems. I like the fact that Whittaker is going to have a lot of time, since his last fight to really get himself right mentally and physically. I think what's interesting for Robert, though, too, is that he's had so many weird fight week and fight situations that can't pull out of this one, right? So you just hope that Whittaker is healthy and is as healthy as possible. I know he's fond of saying the best place to break your hand is inside the octagon, but you hope that Whittaker's healthy because I think he feels a lot of pressure to make the walk. Forget about the opponent and the challenge, but given recent history, I think he feels some pressure to be healthy on October 5th. So hopefully he is. I haven't seen a betting line. I would think Whittaker would be a slight favorite, maybe in the -150 range. I think he would certainly deserve that distinction, but it's a pick 'em fight for me, boys. I mean, I can't pick a winner.
And just from your perspective, obviously you'd be commentating that fight. How much of a miss do you think it would be if this fight didn't go down in a huge stadium in Australia? Because it looks like it might be in Vegas, but if the opportunity is missed to have almost 60,000 local fans there just going crazy, do you think it'll be a bit sad?
Oh yeah, no, this has got to be a stadium show in Australia, and rest assured that internally they are doing everything humanly possible to make sure that happens. That's where it needs to go. I'm trying to convince Joe Rogan to get over there, but I'm not sure he's going to take me up on that, because we love having him there for those big shows. He's not doing as many internationals anymore, but you can be sure I'm poking the bear and trying to get Rogan to come over there if, in fact, we get there in October.
Nice. The Aussie fans will love you for that because you love to see Joe Rogan down here. Tell him, crocodiles and all sorts of stuff that can kill you. Just tell him there's flamethrowers. He'll want to come down to see the flamethrowers.
Yeah, that'll get him going.
Yeah. Just quickly before we let you go, John, obviously we've got Rafael dos Anjos taking on Leon Edwards this weekend. Edwards obviously has a really nice streak going, sort of banging on that door at the very top of the division. This could be sort of the win that kind of pushes him forward. RDA obviously shocked a lot of people when he beat Kevin Lee quite decisively. Who have you got going over in this one this weekend, John?
Well, I'm very excited to get there. I talked to both guys today. I mean, Leon Edwards with 7 consecutive wins in this welterweight division, 9 of 10 overall, the only loss to Kamaru Usman. He's got as much momentum as any 170-pound fighter, and just the confidence just dripping through the phone. Just feels like he's entering his fighting prime at 27 years old. I think what's interesting is that this fight came together relatively quickly, right? They needed a main event for San Antonio, so both guys had about 5 weeks. And both guys actually think that the abbreviated training camp could be a benefit to them. I think for Dos Anjos, what's interesting is that he's headlining here for the second time in 8 UFC live events, inside a couple months. And he did go into a 4th round with Kevin Lee. So a lot of wear and tear on RDA, not necessarily the fresher fighter, but, doubt that guy at your own peril. So exciting fight, close according to the betting line. RDA is a slight underdog right now, but huge main event, obviously, in terms of this welterweight landscape. And Leon Edwards, if he can get this one, I think could be a real threat come 2020.
All right, well, there you guys go. It's going to be exciting fights this weekend. Of course, Dan Hooker also on the card against James Vick. So all the Kiwis excited about that one. And he is the best in the game, one of the nicest guys behind the scenes and in the industry. We really mean that, John. Thank you so much for being on the program. Follow John on Twitter at Jon_Anik and catch his podcast with fellow UFC legend Kenny Florian, the Anik Florian podcast. It's one of our favorites. John, always such an honor to have you on the program, and it's a bit belated, but happy birthday, my friend. 41, but looking 21.
Hey. Oh,
21.
Fucking A, 41. See, I got through the whole interview without cussing, and then we dropped that 41. But, hey, you guys are the best, and I love coming on with you, and hopefully we'll be able to connect later this year for Whittaker and Adesanya.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, John. Appreciate it.
See you, boys. My pleasure.
Hey, this is Tony Okagui Ferguson, and you guys listen to Submission Radio. Keep tuning in, guys.
All right, guys. Our next guest is coming off an impressive win over Pedro Munoz at UFC 238, currently riding a 4-fight win streak. He's also the man that many people feel deserves the next title shot for Henry Cejudo's bantamweight belt, the Funk Master himself, Aljamain Sterling. Welcome to Submission Radio. How are you today, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Dude, it's great to have you on the program, and it's been an interesting weekend for your division. Urijah Faber returned to active competition. Many people were expecting Ricky Simón to get the win. Faber pulled off the upset, beat him in 46 seconds, then calls out Henry Cejudo. Before this weekend, did you even remotely expect Urijah Faber would be talking about being the next title challenger to Cejudo's belt?
No, I didn't think he would be irrational that much to think that, coming out of retirement after such a long layoff and losing to a guy that 2 guys ahead of him beat, I just didn't think that made a ton of sense. I understand he's a legend and all that. He has a huge following and whatnot, but let's be real here. The guy's had 4 title shots, and I don't think he's deserving of right now. I just don't think he's deserving of a 5th.
You obviously went on Instagram by now, and everybody's seen you. You posted a picture of yourself in a very nice blue suit, but more importantly, you said that it's time to stop the bullshit and get back to business. What was your sort of take on it? What do you think it sort of says about the sport that Faber, despite his long layoff, is kind of being talked about as the next possible title challenger, and skipping over a guy like yourself who is currently riding a really impressive 4-fight win streak?
It's MMA, man. The Wild Wild West. You can just expect that anything can happen, and that's kind of where I'm at with things. I'm ranked number 2 in the world for a reason, I put in the work, put my time in. The fans know that I deserve a shot. Even the casuals know I deserve a shot. The people who might not be the hardcore fans, but I think my performance and my work speaks for itself. And at the end of the day, if Faber's the guy who jumps in there with me, or Petr Yan, or whoever it is for the interim title, I'll be more than happy to oblige to either one of those tasks.
The interim title, that's something that we want to talk to you about in just a second, but obviously you retweeted some art from Chris Reaney that he put together for Bloody Elbow. I know you didn't love the way that your legs were depicted, and you kind of made a joke about that, but other than that, how accurate do you think that cartoon is, sort of, as far as, title shots these days? A lot of people have kind of echoed that sentiment.
It's accurate in the sense of people talking about it. It's not really the sense of Dana talking about it, so that part was a little off, I guess. I didn't even want to acknowledge that part. I want to acknowledge just the drawing of my legs. Because I think Dana knows if it was like a GSP and he was coming off of a big win, coming off of retiring from the belt like GSP has done in the past, and coming back and wanting to just fight for the belt immediately, it makes sense. But Urijah is not that guy, so it does not make any sense whatsoever. I think he's a huge draw in Sacramento. I don't know if everyone is, and the thing about the MMA fans is, what have you done for me lately? So for him to be away for so long, come back with such a big win, don't get me wrong, it was a great performance on his part in terms of the finish. I just think there's a couple guys that are, there's a hierarchy now. He left the queue, and now he re-entered the queue. So if he wants to come back and challenge for a world title, more power to him, but he's going to have to do it on my terms and wait for the shot. At this point, I think all things are going to have to somewhat have to do with me and kind of go around me in order to get to that gold strap. So at the end of the day, I'm not really worried. I got all the confidence in the world that things are going to go accordingly and according to plan, and I'll get that long-awaited title shot. So that's where I'm at right now.
You mentioned on Twitter that Urijah needs to beat somebody in the top 10. I mean, based on what you saw, how do you think he'd do against the top guys in your division?
I mean, didn't we see it already? He lost to Jimmy Rivera. I mean, I don't know if there's much else to say about that. There's a Corey Sandhagen, there's a Rafael Sunsao. He could fight. I think he might have fought him in the past, like a long time ago. Maybe him and Dominic Cruz could have an old man's match. The retired fighters, so maybe they can challenge each other for the retired MMA fighters league, the has-beens, So that's where I'm at, man. I want to fight one of these young contenders, one of these guys who deserve it, and that's where I'm at. So I've never been one to shy away from a challenge, and I've never been one to shy away from talking a big game. I like to put my money where my mouth is and go out there and perform and do what I got to do. So, like I said, whether it's Urijah, Petr Yan, I don't even know who else there is because just about everybody else is coming off the loss. So I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting for my managers to call me, let me know, and go from there.
I mean, you mentioned it. He's had an incredible career, but it's interesting to see how he would do against the top guys in the division. If you matched up with Urijah, let's say in the next fight, how do you think that matchup would go?
In the next fight?
Yeah, if you were to fight Urijah next for the, let's say, interim title or whatever, how do you see that matchup going?
He's too slow, man. He's small. He's too slow. He's not strong. He might have an old man strength. That's about it. But I would like to think that I got a better squeeze than he does in terms of the grappling department. I think I'm a lot more versatile than an overhand right. And shame on Ricky Simone for not knowing that was his one trick that he had in the bag. But Uriah's been notorious for that, taking out up-and-coming contenders, the Michael McDonald's. Now Ricky Simone joins that list. He's a tough dude. He's a veteran. He's got good fight IQ. But I think, like, Father Time catches up to everybody. I'm just hitting my prime. I just don't think he's got the goods for me. And I'm not really worried about it. I don't think that's the matchup that they're going to make. I think if there is a fight that's going to be on the table that the fans want to see, it's going to be myself versus a young, tough, hungry Petr Yan who needs to get the shit smacked out of him.
Well, why do you feel like Piotr needs to get the shit smacked out of him? Because I know he was calling you out not too long ago for an interim title shot.
Yeah, the guy's what I would like to call a little bit of a two-faced talker. He's one of those guys who says, "Oh, I don't do my talking outside the cage. I get in there, let my performance speak for itself," that type of thing. He's one of those kind of guys. And then he gets on Twitter and he's talking about he could beat Henry Cejudo and I in one night with one hand or whatever, something dumb. And then he tried to come up to me and ask me why I'm afraid to fight in Moscow. And I had to simply, politely tell him, "Hey there, Peter. I'm ranked higher than you. You don't call the shots. I call the shots. You report to me for work or Dana White. But other than that, his dude's going to come. You know, he thinks he's better. He thinks he's better. I think I'm better. And I think it's going to be a great fight."
So he confronted you in Moscow and said that to you?
No. He asked me why am I afraid to fight him in Moscow? I told him no one's afraid to fight him in Moscow. I told him I like my money. I don't want to be taxed 35% or whatever the hell it is. And you don't call the shots because he doesn't. You know, so at the end of the day, he's just coming to the game. You know, so the money fight between a fight with him and myself would be in the States for sure. I think that's where they would want to do a pay-per-view. Cejudo's got to go down to defend the 25-pound belt first against Joey Benavidez. Joey 2 times. After Benavidez takes one belt off the shoulder, I'm going to come in and take the other belt off the shoulder.
I think you and Piotr would be a really good fight, you know, because you guys are two guys at the top of the division. But I wanted to, and I guess you kind of answered it. I was going to ask why not Cejudo. I know he's injured right now. Are you sort of okay with him sort of going down and fighting Benavidez while you're sort of at the top of the division? Because a lot of people feel like you'd be ready to fight him, you know, now coming off that impressive win over Pedro Munoz, you know, and be his return fight when he comes back from injury.
Oh yeah, 100%. I would, if I had the opportunity, the real shot at the real belt right away, that would be the ideal situation. But unfortunately, I don't make the rules in this company, in the UFC. Dana White, Sean Shelby, McMaynard, those guys call the shots. You know, they get to the big boys table and they make those decisions. And I'm the company man, so I'm just gonna have to go out there. They tell me who I'm gonna fight, and I just gotta go out there and beat them up and backpack them or wherever the case may be. I've been my backpack's getting a little dusty these days. I'm trying to keep you guys up all standing up now these days, so I might have to go touch that off and bring it back out of the toolbox. But I would love that fight against Henry Cejudo. He's a tough dude, competitor, but same thing, man. He's too small and he's a tough dude. But you got two guys. I'm not Marlon. I'm not TJ. I got this. He's not gonna find no quit in me. I'm a different. I truly do believe I'm a different breed. I think my one hiccup was the fight with Marlon. I got put out. I think there's a difference between giving up and getting put out. And I don't think any of my performances have ever shown anyone been able to push me over like some punk. And I think that's the difference between a matchup with him and I. So I'm excited for that match in the future. But as of right now, I got to do what I got to do. Whoever is going to be standing across that cage for me, I'm just going to meet them in the center, walk forward, push forward, put the volume pace on them, and funk them up.
Just speaking of Cejudo, what do you think of him in general and his King of Cringe gimmick? The whole Triple C nickname, walking around with the gold medal and the belt, sort of out in public. What do you make of the whole persona?
It's god-awful, but I don't know if it's working or if it's helping to want people wanting to see him just get his ass kicked. So maybe that will help sell tickets that way and people to order the pay-per-view to see him get the shit kicked out of him. maybe that's what it's doing. But I think people are just super annoying. They just don't want to see the guy. I just hope that's not the case when we fight, or they at least tune in so that they know I'm gonna kick his ass. So I think that's pretty much it. There's not much I can say about that. It's a little odd. I think he is an odd guy, and I think he's just embracing his oddness in the public eye. But his resume speaks for itself, you know. Like I said, he's a tough dude, but he hasn't. I know everyone says he hasn't fought me yet, but he hasn't fought nobody like me yet. This is a different type of style.
Well, what do you think it'd mean sort of to add a scalp like him on your resume? You've beaten a lot of tough guys. He's had some excellent wins in his last few fights. What would it mean to sort of put a guy like Cejudo out?
I mean, he was at the ESPYs considered one of the greatest male combat athletes. Was it all athletes or just combat athletes?
I believe the ESPYs is all athletes.
And he was in that consideration, that race with Amanda Nunes and Daniel Cormier.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, he's a double champ, Olympic champ. So when I beat him, what does that make me?
Absolutely. I mean, he is a great name to have on the resume. Just quickly, Aljamain, while we're talking about champions, I mean, a former champion of the division is TJ Dillashaw. We never really did get a chance to have you on the program to get your thoughts on what happened with him losing his belt and obviously being suspended. What do you make of TJ sort of being out of the mix for a while? And is he a guy that if you became champion, you'd be willing to sort of defend against if he returns to MMA and fought again?
Yeah, if they test his ass. I've heard those rumors. I got the cone head going right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, wow, look at that. Mohawk.
My new hairdo, I'm going to go in there and spike people.
Backpack with a spike to the head.
Yeah. Nah, you know what, man? In the MMA community, I kind of feel like it's small, but it almost reminds me a little bit of high school with like the gossipy kind of talking. This guy talks about this guy and this girl talks about that. It's a little weird like that. And I mean, these rumors of him doing stuff have been like years ago.
But you heard about this a while ago before he even.
Yeah. So I'm not one to throw dirt on anybody's name, but the dirt is out, and I'm gonna have to put TJ to shame, man. If he earns his way back to a title shot, then I'll oblige. But I got to make sure he's getting his ass tested because that guy's got cardio for days, and we obviously now know why. It's I think when you have such a crazy high output like that, and you don't slow down, something's got to be up. But I don't know. I'm no scientist, but if he's the guy standing across from me, it's all the same. I treat everybody the same, and let's go out there and have some fun.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you mentioned that you sort of heard rumors about this a while ago. For a lot of fans, him getting busted sort of puts his legacy into question a little bit and what he's achieved. Does it do the same for you? Do you look back on some of the wins that he's gotten and sort of does it tarnish a little bit what he's achieved?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it has to. I don't think there's no way to go around that. I mean, how can you not question it? I mean, even people were questioning stuff about Jon Jones and the whole picogram thing, and I wouldn't say Jon Jones cheated. I would say he parties a lot, and maybe he put himself in situations where people were giving him stuff that could have been the reason why that happened. That's my only way I can justify that in terms of the way that helps him. But a cheater's a cheater. At the end of the day, that's never happened to me. That's never happened to anyone on our team. And I think it speaks volumes, man. We compete, we train hard, we compete hard, and we love the sport. We're super passionate. You see Ally Quinta, you don't boo him. He fights all 5 rounds. He fights all 3 rounds. He leaves his heart out there. Same thing with Weidman. And myself, Vellante, we go out there, we fight hard, we compete hard, and do this all for the fans. And, yeah, man, if you guys want to go out there and cheat and take the easy route, I just hope they can live with the consequences of whatever that may be on their body and whatever on the future. But if that's what you want to do to feel like that's what you need to do to get ahead, then you're mentally weak anyway, and there's gonna be a way for someone to break you. And I'm going to be that guy to help find that breaking point.
You mentioned some of the great work at obviously your gym, guys like Wyman, Volante, Ally Quinta, good friend of the program. Obviously the work is showing, man, because you looked absolutely fantastic against Pedro Munoz at UFC 230. The way you mixed everything together, and you've been on this great tear since the Marlon fight, and that was all the way back in 2017. 4 in a row, beat some tough guys. What would you say is the main difference between you sort of back then and you now?
I mean, the way I chalk it up is the worst thing that I've always thought about that could happen in the sport was being knocked out in front of millions of people, and that's what happened. And at that point, that was more of a confidence thing, not knowing what you can feel, what it feels like to get really cracked with 4-ounce gloves, or a shin to the neck, or a shin on chin, or to the temple, whatever. One of those shots that can put you out. And sure enough, I took a knee straight to the chin and shut the lights out immediately. And after that, it was kind of like, well, that was the worst that could happen. I mean, it's not like I felt it. I would thank God nothing was broken. My jaw, no orbital bones were broken, and I was able to live to fight another day. And I think when I went through that series of emotions and just watching it back, it let me know, like, you know what, man, we only have one opportunity in this fight game, and might as well just go out there and just make the best of it and have some fun. Because if you win, you're great. You lose, it's going to be all the same. So it doesn't really matter. And even before that fight, I think my fight, Augusto Mendez, my fight with Renan Barão, I was starting to pick up momentum every single fight. Every single fight, I was progressively getting better. And then the one fight, I was supposed to fight Ronnie Yaya. Marlon steps in when he gets hurt, short notice fight. And, I took him lightly. I didn't give him the respect he deserved. I barely looked at any tape on him. I saw the split decisions that he had with a Sunsao and the ones with a Dotson. I kind of did MMA math. I was like, well, I got this in the bag. And sure enough, fight night, I didn't have the nerves, and not having the nerves on fight night, even if you're super confident you're going to win, is not a good sign. Usually that's a bad thing. That's your fight or flight system responding, in my opinion, letting you know, like, all right, you got to be sharp. Your survival awareness, they heighten. Your aggressive instincts, they heighten. It's a kill or be killed type of situation, even though we're not really killing anybody, but that's the mentality you have to go in there with. And I didn't go in there with that mentality against Marlon. And that's why I truly been telling people, like, whether or not they want to believe what they want to believe, I know myself. I know how I perform. I know how I train. I know the work that I put in. And I think that fight, had I approached it with the mindset I've been having in these last six fights, besides the Marlon fight, I think it's a different ball game. And I think now we're just, like I said, we've been getting better every single fight. And I think the last one, just another wrinkle in my game. And I'm excited for the next one. I really am, because I'm going to really try to go out there and do some crazier shit. So stay tuned.
We can't wait to see you do it. Now, before we let you go, Aljamain, we just wanted to quickly mention, we saw you were at Monday Night Raw the other day. Tell us, how did this happen?
I was supposed to have a business meeting with this beard company. Yeah, but I had to teach class. I just got off the flight from San Diego, so I was kind of time warped. 2 weeks of drinking, Vegas, come home for like 3 or 4 days, and go straight out to LA. And then I was partying out there, and I was like, dude, I probably worked out twice. And I was like, dude, I need to like seriously detox. And I was on like zero sleep. And I wasn't even going to go, so I didn't get a chance to meet the owner that I was supposed to meet. He does a lot of business with those guys. One of the guys is an active WWE fighter, I guess you'll call him.
Pro wrestler.
Term. Pro wrestler.
Yeah.
And so we missed the meeting because I had to teach class at the gym, and we had to reschedule. So it is what it is. So they gave us a couple of tickets to go down and watch and hang out. It was cool. It was a different environment. I like the whole theatrics and of like, the walking down the ramp, the lighting, the kids yelling, and the crowd getting into it. That one guy who does like the thing with his music, almost like a soap opera, or like he does music. The beat drops, he bends down, and then he comes up with like to the beat, and then the whole crowd is doing it and then flashing the lights. I was like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. So I enjoyed my time going to that for the first time ever. I was a big fan when I was a kid, and I kind of stopped watching it once I heard like, this like not the real McCoy. But that's pretty much all that.
All right. Well, as we let you go, we have to get a quick update on what the ideal timeline for your return would be. So if everything went perfectly, if you got that next title shot, Well, I suppose it would be an interim title shot because Cejudo's out for a little bit. What would be the timeline that works for you perfectly if you were to fight for an interim title sometime soon?
I'm going to say November, December. I think that would be the most ideal time. I'm still fat, still heavy. Trying to slim down. My abs are still on vacation. I'm trying to bring them back, but they don't want to leave. And, I want to enjoy my Long Island summer. We don't get a lot of good weather out here. It gets – even though it's still a great time, it gets kind of crappy not being able to enjoy the water and things like that. So be able to hang out with friends and family and go to the beach, get some beach training, hang out, just going out and just enjoying the weather and stuff like that. It's you don't get this too often in this type of sport when you're prepping for a fight. Usually those summers, they go by like that and you don't really get to enjoy it. So I'm enjoying the fruits of my labor. That June fight was perfect timing, so I could just relax, recover, heal up, and get some things situated and taken care of with my podcast and all that other stuff. And yeah, man, November, December, I think that's probably gonna be the next time I get back in there.
Just talk to us about your podcast, The Weekly Scraps, man. For those who may not have tuned in just yet, but definitely should. What can they expect?
Well, it's pretty much a hardcore. If you're a hardcore fight fan, I give you the goods in terms of breaking it down, breaking down the technique, letting people know step by step what the fighters are doing in there, and it's been fun for me. I've been tweeting about fights for such a long time, and then I had a few people tell me I should do a podcast, and then I finally was like, you know what, let's just do it. Let's just see what happens with it, and let's just have fun because I've been doing it anyway for free. I'm still not doing it. I'm not getting paid for it. I enjoy it. And I think it's actually made me a better MMA coach. And some of the stuff that I see, I do take it and I bring it to the training room, and I either work on it for myself or I'll teach it to the team. And yeah, so it's been very beneficial for me to do this. And we recap the fights from the weekend before, and then we break down the fights that are coming up in terms of their skill sets. And that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, there you go, guys. Check out The Weekly Scraps. Of course, follow them out on Twitter and Instagram at @funkmaster_UFC. I can't wait to see Ally Quinter on The Weekly Scraps and, all the guys from Team Longo. Aljamain, we could talk to you for ages, man, but we don't want to be greedy with your time. Really appreciate you jumping on and chatting with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
This is Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Our next guest is one of the top-ranked heavyweights in the world. Joining us on the program to shed some light on what's been going on and what's next. A pleasure to welcome Big Pretty Justin Willis back to Submission Radio. Justin, welcome to the program. Loving the shirt, man. Is that a new addition in the Big Pretty merchandise collection?
Yeah, man. Go to www.bigpretty.world and go check out the collection. I got these cool wristbands, too. Wristbands, Learn, grow, conquer. That's the motto, baby.
Ooh,
very nice, man. Very nice. Learn. By the way, where are you? We see there's like a dummy in the background for like a wrestling and grappling. I imagine. Whereabouts are you right now?
I'm in my garage, man. This is my one of my offices.
Mm-hmm. This dummy, when you practice moves on it, do you by any chance envision Tai Tuivasa when you're practicing on it?
I practice it. Not really, man, because I don't really focus on clowns. Nah, this is something that I've always had in my garage, and it gets a lot of use. Look at his wrist right now, especially now. We getting it in, baby.
All right. Well, let's pick up where sort of things got left off. Tai Tuivasa was on the program a few weeks ago. He told us about a number of DMs that he sent you on Instagram. He said that none of them were read, and he said that he challenged you to a fight. He said he wanted you guys to bring bags of money. He alluded to $100,000 each. And you sent us through a screenshot of your inbox. We'll just chuck it up on the interview right now. Talk us through, for people from your perspective, on what the situation is.
Number one, on everything I love. I put it on everything, my family. I put it on God as my witness. That man ain't never sent me no personal inbox. That's a total lie. And it's nothing but trying to control the narrative. And I'm understanding now a little bit what's going on. He's in what I like to call the UFC protective custody. He's a guy who has, at this time, he has clout. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, and the UFC is literally trying to protect him. Everything I stand for, this guy stands for in falsehoods. The whole West Side thing. Motherfucker, I'm from California. This is where this shit began. So, again, it's appropriation of culture. It's one of those things where, the guy is all talk, no walk. And, I literally, what I did is I didn't fight. I didn't take a fight so that I could be available to fight this man. And we're all seeing what's truly happening. The guy is running for cover. And the UFC is protecting him because they're trying to protect their image. And I understand.
Just to clarify that, when you said you didn't take a fight, what do you mean by that?
So there was 3 things. After my last fight, which, was not a good performance on my behalf, and I can admit that as a man. And what I do is I learn, grow, conquer. I get back to the drawing boards, which I have done, and I have gotten better, but after my last fight, what I decided to do is since this guy was talking, it was a 3-fold thing. One of the things was I wanted to actually have a chance to go through a full camp with DC, which I'm doing. Mm-hmm. That's number 1. Number 2, I wanted to get my weight down, and I'm at that weight. That's number 2. And these are things that I presented to the UFC, which are all logical things. And if the promotion truly wanted me to get better, these are things that anybody who is thinking without emotion would understand. Because especially after Talavesa got knocked out, after Ngannou got controlled by Stipe, after all these different circumstances, these guys got time to actually go get better, right? And we all see what happened with Ngannou after the Stipe and after Derek Lewis. He's been on a tear because he fixed whatever he needed to fix to get better, right? Which is fair.
Mm-hmm.
So, what happens is all these guys, they got time to actually get better. The only thing I asked for was a little bit more time so that I can get better, and which I have. I've kept my word. And the third reason was to actually get Talavesa, because I know if I would have been booked, there wouldn't have been a reality. They would have did what you're seeing today. They're hiding him, but it would have been a lot worse. You get what I'm saying? So the situation is pretty clear. The only fight that makes sense for him, the UFC knows it, fans know it, you know it, he knows it, I know it, everybody knows, because of how he spoke and how he is being now. It's pretty evident that the only fight that makes sense for him is who? It's me. Point blank, period. Am I right or wrong about that?
Man, I think the fans have been wanting to see this fight for a long time now, and every time we get Ty on the show, we're always asking him, whether you guys are going to be able to fight. So when you requested these things from the UFC, which seems pretty reasonable, we want to get your weight down, we want to train with DC, what was their response? What did they say to you?
You saw the response. The response was, one that did not seem favorable to the mind to how how do I say this in the right? I'm gonna fuck the right way. I'm gonna say it how it is. Mm-hmm. When it comes towards improving as an athlete, that's not the real response that you want from the organization. You make sense? So when you come to an organization and you give them honesty, because I could have lied, bro. Right? A lot of these guys, I'm not lying. A lot of these guys could have lied and said I was hurt, I was this, I was that. You get what I'm saying? And then got their requests. I came truthfully like a man. And like a man, it was not, taken well because they're not used to that, man. And that's okay, But the reality is the reality. And the reality is that, again, a 4-1 in the UFC, I lost to the number 3 guy. You know what I mean? So, and again, it's nonsensical now. It doesn't make sense. And since it doesn't make sense, I have to start looking at other things. And the other things are, I stand for a lot of things politically. I stand for a lot of things. I stand for a lot of things. And, I'm not saying that that is directly the reason, but I'm thinking that, after I took an L and, in a simple fact that they're trying to protect Talavesa. And again, man, I understand it's a business. That's a reality. That's also a reality. And right now, he's a guy that has more clout. But that doesn't mean that he should have a little bit more pride when it comes towards his craft. This is the art of the Bushido, art of the warrior.
I want to talk about sort of you and Ty sort of a little bit later down the line, but obviously in terms of your situation, the way fans understand it is that you got released by the UFC. Is that the case? And are you sort of free to go to sort of other promotions now? And is that what you're looking to do? Are you looking for, other avenues of where you can fight?
Right now, as according to management, yes. After that, my request got denied, essentially. And so what we've been trying to do is try to essentially the only thing that makes sense, again, is to fight Ty. But yes, that is a reality of mine, is that I have been released because I did ask for that fight, and I did ask for those requests. And those requests have been denied, or were denied at that time.
But Justin, do you see how, from a fan's perspective, it's crazy, a promotion letting somebody go because they ask for a fight with someone with some time off? We've seen countless fighters do it. Is there anything else to this release? Did you have some issues with the UFC beforehand? Is there anything else to why this release came? Was it one of many things that happened between you and the company that sort of tied this thing? Are you saying it's just purely the fact of the things that you mentioned?
Personally, to me, again, I like to speak in realities.
Yeah.
And personally, I have never disrespected a UFC staff member. I've never disrespected anybody. You guys know how I am, man. My opponent is the only person who really sees my wrath, and that's just how I've been since I've been a little boy. But again, I talk about a lot of issues in our community, and the issues sometimes will offend some people that are Caucasian. And to be honest with you, who runs these organizations, Caucasian men. And so, again, that's not a stab. And I'm not a racist guy. I'm a guy that likes, if you go check everything that I post or everything that I talk about, I just want to stick in the realm of reality so that we can all get to a position where we are all equal, no matter who you are. I don't care if you're living in a trailer park and you're a Caucasian. I don't care if you're the Asian guy. I don't care if you're the brown guy. I don't care who you are. I just want to get to equality where everybody is treated justly, just because not because of they're not treated unjustly because of the way they look or the way they whatever it may be. Equality.
There's been some other fighters who have sort of been in situations with the company before, and they've tried to speak with Dana White directly, sort of clear some things up, get on the same page, make sure that they're understanding what's going on. Have you requested for a chance to speak to Dana White? And what has the UFC responded with, if that's the case?
Today was my first day where I actually asked for that. It's crazy. It's crazy that you mentioned that. Today is actually the first day that I actually requested that. So we'll see where that goes, to be honest.
Any oh, sorry, you go, Dennis.
Well, sorry, I was just going to say, Justin, I suppose if Dana listens to this, what would your message be to him? What would sort of your message be?
It's pretty obvious. The request would be, the request would be redemption. It's one of those things where I'm a guy where if you look at my track record, it wasn't always successful. I've done a lot, I've been through a lot, and I've always overcome. It's kind of terrible when you take an L, and I'm a guy where you see, man, I took a L my first fight, and I went on an 8-fight streak. So I'm a guy where I know I bounce back. I know I learn, grow, conquer. And so in order to not give a man that opportunity to redeem himself, when I see guys take 1, 2, 3, 4 fights in a row where they take losses and they stay signed to the promotion, that doesn't make sense. And it's kind of, it is hypocritical.
I was going to ask Justin, when you spoke with the UFC and they sort of gave that release, was the door open at all? Because we've seen a lot of fighters leave the UFC and then come back, sometimes immediately, sometimes a few more wins. Did they say anything like, if you get more wins outside the promotion, they'll welcome you back? Did they say that, there's other ways that you get back in? Because it sounds to me like you're not really interested in going to any other promotions. You want to go back to the UFC, correct?
I mean, it just makes sense. I'm 4-1 in the UFC. The only person I lost to is the number 3 guy. So, and there's guys who lose to, for example, your guy, Tai Talvesa. He just lost to number 15 guy. A guy that I train with and I know exactly what his abilities are. He lost to this guy. So, again, man, I'm not trying to shit on nobody. It's just nonsensical. And so you have to start, when it becomes nonsensical, you have to start looking at the reality of the situation. The reality is not fighting anymore. It's something else. And, if it's personal, so be it. This is not a business, a personal. Right? This is the fight game, not the light game. So if they don't like me because of what I stand for, they have to get over their feelings. You know what I mean? Because the thing about it like this, is people love redemption stories. This is a situation where Australia's fans want to see what? They want to see the redemption of Tai Talvesa. Am I right or wrong?
You're right, yeah.
Okay. So, and again, against a person who he has history with. Number 2, they want to see, my fans want to see the redemption of me. Okay? So when you have these two, people that are on opposite sides of the earth, I already beat his daddy up. You know what I mean? So, you have these two stories that need to collide. And we need to see what's up. It just makes sense. And so if they're not going to do it, or if Ty doesn't do it, it only leads to one avenue in reality of the mindset of Tai Talvesa. He's a coward.
I mean, we spoke to Ty a few weeks ago.
And he can say whatever he wants to say. I'm a guy where I live in reality. And the reality is he never sent me an inbox. I put that on GOD. Never. So he had the audacity to sit there to lie to you and to lie to all your fans. Okay? That's the reality of the situation because it's all about image and narrative. I'm sitting here. I sent you a picture. Tell him to send a picture where it says that he sent these preposterous inboxes. It's a story to make him look cool. This is not a sport about looking cool, man. This is my life. And I'm going to go in there and try to take his life. This is not a game. Okay?
From that perspective, though, Justin, do you think that, because to him this whole thing is personal, and his perspective on it is he doesn't want to do any favors for you. He doesn't want to be the reason why you're back in the UFC.
It's not, that's fear. That is fear. He is telling you his fear. He is telling you. And so if a guy talks mess and says he wants to fight a guy, he says he wants to beat a guy, cave his face in, all those preposterous things that he says, and the guy makes a U-turn to come back and fight him, and he runs and comes up with a preposterous story like he came up with, it's fear, man.
Yeah, well, so sorry to jump in there. So from his perspective, though, he feels like the trash talk has gone too far. It's very personal for him. Do you have any regret as to where the trash talk has gone? Do you have any regret in some of the avenues that it's gone to? Because it seems like because it's so personal, he doesn't want to take that fight to sort of help you out.
That's fear. Again, that's his fearful, cowardice perspective. He's going to come up with any reason not to fight. Again, he already lied and said he inboxed me, and this was before all the crap talk. Okay? So, again, these are lies. These are set up narratives because he's scared. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. When I beat him up, that's 3 fights in a row. So everything that he literally said about me will happen to him. That's his fear. We got to start being honest. That's what's really going on. And the UFC is literally protecting him. Literally.
Let's go back to you for a sec, Justin. I mean, if you do speak to Dana White and he says, look, you know, we're not a fan of what you do on social media. You know, we're afraid to have you in the company because of some of your views, some of the things that you say. You know, you're welcome to come back, but we want you to stop doing all those things. Would you be willing to sort of change what you do in order to come back into the company, or is that non-negotiable?
It's not negotiable. It's 2019. You know, it's 2019, and people need to be free and able to speak out because we got to be honest again. If I was a Caucasian man saying these same exact things, this wouldn't be an issue.
And I mean, and this is a crazy scenario, but if you never got a chance to fight in the UFC again, but, you know, it's because you got a chance to sort of stand what you believe for, I mean, what kind of effect does that have on you if you never got another chance to fight in the UFC?
I will give everything up to because I believe in everything that I say, that I stand for. So again, that'll just be a sacrifice that I have to make. It'll be ridiculous that fans sit by and allow it to happen. I'll tell you that much. But again, like it's one of those things where, you know, these news outlets. I mean, I sent you the proof. If you need more proof, I could send you more proof. It's just a ridiculous thing where this guy came up with the most ridiculous, fabricated narrative I've ever heard in my life. He's shook. He's afraid. He don't want none of this, man. This reminds me of, like, you know, again, like the Ali and Frazier. Not Frazier. It's a Frazier, right? Where he went and he asked Frazier, like, what's up, man? Let's fight. Right? Frazier was a real fighter. Frazier fought him. You understand? And so, again, what this is showing and what this is proving, not just to myself, my team, the fans, once the fans, you know, snap out of it, right? Because I know he has a lot of people, because he has more clout right now, and I understand that. But what it really is it's really cowardice, man. And I really feel sorry for him because he represents a very strong people. Strong people being the Samoans, which I respect. You know, I'm from East Palo Alto. East Palo Alto, there's a big community of Polynesians, and I have nothing but respect for them. But what he's doing right now is he's disrespecting his culture. And I don't mean that any disrespect at all. These people are warriors. Literally. Come on, man. Represent your people, man.
Really appreciate the time with you, Justin. And I will say this, man. I know it's not confirmed that this Robert Whittaker, Israel Adesanya fight's going to be in Australia, UFC 243. We're hearing it's going to be in Vegas, but we're hoping it's in Australia. And hey, if that fight is in Australia, I think you versus Tai Tuivasa will be a fight that a lot of the fans would want to see, and a lot of the fans
wherever it is, wherever the fight is, the fight has to happen. Again, man, like I'm willing to make this deal, and the deal being, whoever loses is out of the UFC. I'm willing to make that deal because he's one fight away anyway. Okay? Come on, man. Let me ask you guys a question, okay? One question. I'll let you guys go.
Sure.
Am I saying anything preposterous?
I think you've made a good case. I think everything you're saying makes perfect sense.
Thank you. You know, and again, because the UFC is literally attempting to protect this man because he has clout. More clout when it comes towards popularity because he drinks from a boot and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like that's it. If he didn't have that, the man would have already been booted. Okay? But the reality is the reality. And the reality is he needs to fight me. And if he doesn't fight me, the man needs to retire. Because he's a coward. Just go on about your life and leave the fighting to the real fighters.
Well, I feel like we've got a great build-up for a fight that the fans want to see, man. So we hope that you make your way back to the UFC. We hope that your meeting with Dana White or your discussion with Dana White, you know, goes smoothly, goes well, because, you know, this is the fight that definitely has to happen. Follow the man on Twitter and Instagram at BigPrettyMMA. And Justin, we really appreciate you stopping by. Appreciate the screenshots that you sent us, and please keep us updated, man. Keep us updated on your meeting with Dana White.
I thank you guys for having me on, and I appreciate it very much. And Australia, I love you, baby. The king will come home one day.
Hey, this is Ariel Helwani, and you're listening to Submission Radio with my two favorite mates, Dennis and Casper.
All right, guys, our next guest is a former UFC title challenger who's faced some of the best lightweights in the world. Now fighting at welterweight, the Motown phenom himself, Kevin Lee, is back on Submission Radio. Man, it's been too long, Kevin. Welcome back to the program.
Been far too long. You know, I got to show some love for all the fans down under every now and again, and especially you boys. But it's been too long. You are right.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. Always love when you jump on. And look at this hair, man. It's been so long that you've got a completely new hairstyle. When did this happen?
You know, I'm in the process. It's still growing. It's still learning. You know, some people giving me slack for it, but I feel like this is the way my hair naturally come out my head. So why not embrace it? You know, why not enjoy it a little bit and show off what I got?
Yeah, I know. I saw on Instagram. This is almost like an exclusive because I saw there was a picture of you with your brother Keith, who won his fight. Congratulations to Keith. And there was you with the long hair, and I was like, could this be the mysterious Kevin Lee? And Brad Tavares was saying for you to cut off your hair, and it seems like you're not having it.
Yeah, no, I'm not. You know, I'm starting to reach my form. You know, some people, they get halfway through it and, you know, it don't start to look just right. But I feel like I'm reaching my final form. So when you finally see me and I do unveil it, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth all the months where it kind of looked like halfway decent or, you know, sometimes it's just a growing process.
Dude, I've had so many bad haircuts, so I understand where you're coming from. How long are you going to take this? Is this going to be like down to the floor? No, Dewey Cooper's got some pretty long hair. Is this what we're going for one day?
I don't know. You know, I just felt like it's just something that kind of came to me. Like I said, it naturally comes out of my head. So I'm just trying to embrace who I really am. You know, I feel like I'm growing as a man and as a person a little bit. So I'm trying to grow into what's really me and, you know, what's really natural for me. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll just take it as it comes. Whatever is controlling me, we'll do it.
And we've seen you've been fairly quiet on social media for a while now. You're like a rare Pokemon, Kevin Lee. How's life and why the radio silence on social?
Yeah, I mean, you can't give the folks too much sometimes. But then, especially social media, I just started to notice the changes of how it made me in life. And I feel like social media right now is going through such a big change, and it's gonna have to change pretty soon. So I'm kind of like sitting on the back burner, kind of watching it more than anything, and just seeing how exactly it's gonna change, because I think everybody kind of hopped into it without really understanding what it's really affecting us and doing to us. So it's just one of those things where, just for me personally, I had to take a step back, kind of survey everything, and then I'll hop back in when I'm ready for it. But it's just been mostly focusing on myself and doing what I got to do. I let the other people focus on me if they need to.
I know you spoke to us a little bit about this and just mental health in general and how social media sort of contributes to it. It's been a little while now since you've sort of gotten off the rat race of social media. How has life changed since you've sort of removed yourself from the social media side of things and sort of gotten away from that kind of thing?
I've definitely noticed, and I think other people around me have really noticed a change in how I feel more like I connect with people a little bit more. You know, where before, if there's always kind of this chatter in the back of your head, and there's always like, oh, I should be posting something right now, or oh, I should, you know, maybe I should do this because then this will look cool, or, you know, oh, I wonder how many people will want to see this, or, you know, when that kind of went away, when I didn't have to worry about that, then it's like, okay, what do I really like to do, and what do I really like to talk about, and who are the people that I really want to see, not just because other people want me to. And I feel like once I did that, it kind of made a change in how I approached other people and in the types of conversations that I had with them. I feel like it's really helped me stay more personal, if anything.
You know, it's interesting. Social media is one of those things where, like, it kind of started as like, oh yeah, here's me, here's a picture of, you know, you eating dinner, or here's with friends and stuff. But it's it's become very competitive, especially when it's a business sort of tool like for yourself as a fighter. Did you ever sort of, keep track of like analytics? Did you ever look at something and be like, oh man, this isn't getting as many likes or retweets or, things as I thought? Did that stuff ever stress you out?
Yeah, I mean, I did, to be honest, and then it took me a while, and a lot of people kind of wanted me to almost, all these sponsors, and you start getting so many people that, okay, would you post here for I'll give you $1,000, or I'll give you 2,000, or I'll give you 10 if you just post this, and does it? And they want to check and see how many likes you got, and that kind of creeps into your head a little bit too, until I finally kind of sat back and just realized, like, what am I doing this for? Am I doing it for the money? That's not really what I got into the sport for. Am I doing it for, I'm really doing it for other people. I'm doing it to see what their reaction is, because it changes the way that they look at me. But in reality, it just made the way I looked at myself a little different. And mental health is something that I think a lot of people don't focus on enough at all, especially in a sport like this. This sport it's got so many ups and downs and so many highs and lows, and it can really like fuck with your head a lot when you bring in how other people view you and how other people are thinking about it. I just felt like it was just too much for too little, and it's like, what am I doing? And I'm trying to be a world champion here. That's the only thing I care about. I don't really I'm not really in it for the rat race and for the popularity contest. Other people do, and they kind of use that to boost them up. But at the end of the day, I've sat back and looked at it, and some people with millions of followers on social media, that don't necessarily make them a better fighter. It don't necessarily bring in more pay-per-view buys, and I haven't seen anything where anybody is saying otherwise. Like, it's not really a good indicator of how well you're doing popularity-wise either.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I want to touch on something that you said, Kevin, because you said that in a video after your last fight. You made a video when you were still in the hospital, actually, and you talked about the highs and lows of this sport, something you just mentioned, and you said that sometimes the highs and lows, they can kind of they can mess with what you believe in, and I think they can make you question what you really believe in. I'm just wondering, what exactly did you mean by that when you said that, in that hospital after the fight?
There's certain things. I mean, I'm at the end of the day, a lot of UFC fans or just fans in general, or people in general, are really seeing me kind of grow up from a 21-year-old into trying to be a grown man. And I feel like this last year I've really been in a stage of kind of limbo of trying to figure things out. And it just, sometimes you feel like things are falling right into place on what they should be. I'm not very religious. I'm not very like spiritual or anything like that. But I do think that there is something above us that's kind of orchestrating this whole thing. So I'll just give it to you. Like, even the whole night of the fight, everything felt like it was right in place and right what it should be. It's one of them days where somebody you driving on your way to work and every light is green for you. And then somebody comes up and they about to say something, and you know exactly what they're gonna say, and you got the exact perfect answer to them, and just everything feels like it's in place. And when the result didn't go the way that I thought that it was supposed to go, and it where the place that it felt like it should, it made me question all of that. It made me question, what I really thought and what's really controlling. And I'm like, damn, is this all like? Is it really worth something? But that's life, I guess, and as I sat back, I'm like, okay, it is what it is. Only thing I can do is just control what I can control and not worry if there is somebody else or a God or whatever controlling it above us.
I know sometimes I'll have the same thing happen to me, Kevin, and you'll be like, I did everything right, but the outcome wasn't sort of what I wanted it to be. And, that's made me question things and wonder, should I be doing this? Should I be doing something else? So I'm wondering, after you lost to RDA, did you sort of question whether or not you possibly even wanted to keep fighting? You're a young guy. Did you want to maybe consider a career in something else? Did any of that sort of cross your mind?
I'd be lying if I say that it didn't. I think a lot of fighters kind of look. I've won fights, and as soon as I touch outside that octagon, I'm like, man, I ain't never doing this shit again. So
Really?
it's just-
Wow.
Really, when you break it down, it's the craziest fucking thing in the world. You know, you're fighting in front of 20,000 people in an arena, and it's you and one other person. You really gotta pour your soul out there in order to get it done. And it's just such a crazy, and it's like, is it worth it when it? But then you sit back, and then a week passes by, and you're like, oh, I love it so much. Like you know, it's just something. Then you starts to burn again. To where was that question there? Yes, but that question is always there. To be honest with you, the main thing that I kind of knew after that fight is it really woke me up to what I need to do. I knew already that I needed to make changes in my camp. I just put it off on the back burner for so long, and I just figured I know how to fight. I'm gonna get through this next fight, and then I'll worry about it later. And it was kind of like a wake up call to, hey, if you know something's wrong, you need to fix it right here, right now. Don't just try and tough it out all the time, and don't let your ego get into play too much. I felt like my ego was starting to kind of run away with me a little bit there, and you know, the universe has a crazy way of humbling you and kind of sitting you back down and making you think about some shit.
See, the reason why, by the way, I really appreciate honesty and candidness, Kevin, because I think a lot of people could have easily just said, nah, I love this game. But you gave a very honest and real answer there. But what's fascinating is I can understand, you know, taking a loss and then wanting to, you know, maybe never do it again. But you said that even after a win, sometimes you've had that question. What is it after sort of, you know, sometimes even winning a fight that kind of brings that up? And I imagine a lot of fighters have that exact same thing. And is there a particular fight, you know, specifically that you remember having that feeling after?
Like I said, there's been a couple. One in particular I can remember was I fought Francisco Trinaldo when I fought him down in Brazil, and that was such a tough, grueling fight. You know, I feel I may have lost the first round. He landed a couple good shots in there, especially with his left hand. I came back and ended up winning the stand-up and finishing him in the second. But after that fight, I was like, man, it took so much out of me. And in order for you to really perform the best, I feel like you really need to put the real you out there. You really need to like pour your soul out there, which is hard. It's a lot harder to do than it is to say. You know, when you've got millions of people watching, and your mom and your dad and everybody that you know and everybody that you love, they're all watching, and they kind of like, you know, they're seeing the real you. And for somebody like myself who you know, I'm introverted as it is enough. So to put myself out there like that, it's like it can get hard. It can get like daunting on you a little bit. But then like I said, you sit back for a week and you're like, man, I love it so much. And that's that fire inside of you, because that's when you really feel, or at least for myself, I mean, I don't know how other people feel, but that's when I feel most alive is when I do put myself out there. It's just, it's a scary thing to do. And it's like, sometimes you wonder, is it worth it? But at the end of the day, I feel like it will be.
And you mentioned some of the changes you want to make. Can you share with us what kind of changes are you looking to do to your training? Will you be training at a different camp? What's it going to look like for the next fight?
Yeah, you know, I just got done doing this crazy 7-week tour of going around to different camps. I went to LA, I went to Phoenix, I went to Denver, I went to Montreal, and then I'm back here in Vegas now. But you know, to try and find that guy out there, that somebody who will really speak to me. And to be honest, I feel like I did in Montreal with TriStar and Faraz Zahabi, and just having him and being around him and getting to pick his brain and his mind and seeing how it works. I feel like that's what I've been missing. I know that's what I've been missing a little bit ever since my coach Robert Whittaker passed. I haven't had that guy to really guide me and show me the correct way and what to do. And I've just been kind of trying to listen to myself and figure I got it enough. But, you know, it's been a real growing process for me to understand that I got to listen to other people sometimes. And, you know, sometimes even though this is an individual sport, even though I am the only one stepping in there, it's such a team effort of being able to rely on somebody else's experience. So working with Faraz, who is going to be the biggest addition, to my camps and going up and training at TriStar with all his guys is going to be a big one for me. So I'm taking it one step at a time. That's the only thing I'm focused on.
So just to confirm, so you'll be officially training with TriStar for your next camp, for your next fight. Will you be there full-time? Will you be doing part-time between Vegas and Montreal? How exactly is that going to work?
My home base will still be here in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't exactly figured out all the logistics of where and when I'll be. More than likely, it'll be half in Montreal, half here in Vegas, but we'll see how that whole thing plays out.
That's so fascinating, man, because for a long time we've sort of spoken about potential fights between Kevin Lee and GSP, and now up to TriStar. I mean, did you have a chat? Did you see GSP up there? Did you see guys like Rory McDonald up there? Are they happy to have you come and join them, being a guy that could have potentially fought him back in the past?
Yeah, I mean, me and George are cool. We pretty much hung out the whole time. He showed me around Montreal. He showed me all his little spots. We cool. At the end of the day, he understands it. We're martial artists. We're competitors. If I'm not trying to push myself to the limit and I'm not trying to fight the best that's out there, then I feel like he wouldn't understand me as much. I think he's got that same kind of fire in him. So he gets it. I mean, I'm a competitor. I'm gonna try and fight the best of the best. So I think that's like the biggest compliment that I could pay to you is by trying to fight you. If I'm not trying to fight you and you're a bum on the streets, then you probably be more upset at me. So we cool. We talk. We hang. I mean, he's gonna train with me a lot. So I feel like he'll be another one of those great minds that I can kind of pick by being up there and kind of seeing what makes him tick and what made him such a great champion. Those are the things that I think will boost me to the next level.
Dude, I was going to say, because we spent some time with GSP, and he's known for his mental game and overcoming some of the mental health issues that he's had in the past. So did he give you any advice on sort of what's been going on? And I suppose he could probably relate a little bit to what you've been going through, and you could probably relate a little bit to some parts in his career as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've followed his career since the beginning. He is a little bit of an idol of mine, but we haven't got that too far into it. We mostly just hanging out and kind of getting to know each other a little bit. So we'll take it as it comes.
I was going to also ask you, Kevin, just sort of speaking about Vegas and the UFC PI, we saw Michael Chiesa was still interested in having that rematch with you. And it's funny because he said that you guys kind of talked and ran into each other, chatted. We all remember, obviously, that press conference moment between you two. Things were kind of heated and tense for a while. What is it like these days when you guys run into each other at the PI?
It's been a while since I ran into him. Since the last time we had that talk. He was right. He asked for the rematch. I said, sure, yeah, you can get it. I mean, you just gotta earn it. You just gotta deserve it. But that's definitely something that's still on the table. If he feel like he want to run it back, I love free money, so I'm not gonna turn it down. I mean, he's a good competitor. I'll give him that. They've tossed him a couple softballs. I haven't fought a Diego Sanchez in my career yet. I don't get them kind of softballs. I'm taking on former world champions, but we'll see. We'll see how that whole thing play out. If there could be still some smoke there, and what they say, if there's smoke, there might be some fire. So we'll see.
I just want to clarify, when you say free money, as in because you see that as a favorable matchup for you, see Chiesa as a good fit for you in terms of an opponent?
Yeah, that fight ain't going no different than the first time. I was whooping his ass the first time and choked him out, and he only lasted a round. So, we'll see. I mean, if anything, maybe he might be able to last two. Maybe. I doubt it. But that's not really what I'm focused on. More than anything, I'm still focused on going after Kamaru and getting that title. I still feel like that's a good fight for me. So whatever fights put me there is what I'm gonna take. If Chiesa is one of them ones and he keeps winning and he keeps going up, then that's somewhere we'll visit.
Well, I was going to ask you, man, because there's there's heaps of really good matchups in the welterweight division now. We saw what Jorge Masvidal did to Ben Askren the other week with that crazy flying knee KO. I mean, Askren is now, he lost that fight, but is he somebody who's in your firing line now as a potential opponent, seeing as how much of a draw he is?
Yeah, like you say, he's a big draw, but he took a big hit with that one, and he didn't show that he can compete with with a lot of the top guys, especially when you get knocked out. I mean, you talk about 5 seconds. 5 seconds. Like, me, I'm gonna keep it real with you. It's gotta be something in it for me. There's no way that I can updo a 5-second flying knee KO. And every time I go into a fight, I want to do better than the guy who did last. So, I don't know. There's not a whole lot there for me. I honestly, I'm not even focused on who's going to be the next opponent. I mean, like you said, there's a lot of great matchups out there. Anthony Pettis is getting ready to fight Nate Diaz too. You got Jorge Masvidal, who's a great fight. You got Darren Till, who's still out there. There's so many good fights that I'm not really too concerned with it. I'm more concerned with getting back in there, getting the right fight, and going out there and putting on a show just for me and trying to be better. It don't really matter who the opponent is.
I'll put it to you like this. Who do you see as sort of the easiest challenge out of that category? And who do you see as someone that could actually give you a good fight out of the potential opponents?
I mean, Ben is probably the easiest out of the category, out of anybody. He's just too hittable, and he's too one-dimensional, and too, he had that little back and forth with me at the press conference talking about he took me down when I was 19 years old, as if that meant something to anybody. He didn't talk about the right hand that I kept hitting him with right before that, but hey, that's water under the bridge. The probably the toughest, I honestly couldn't tell you. I mean, it would have to be Kamaru. Kamaru is bigger. We have a very similar style, and he's got some explosiveness on him, and he's shown that he can play a really strategic fight and go and it's hard to get rid of him, and he's going to be in your face constantly. So out of anybody, it's going to be Kamaru who's going to be the biggest fight in the biggest challenge, and that's the one that I'm really chasing.
I don't know if you're really if these guys are really on your radar at all, but obviously you got RDA and Leon Edwards this weekend. RDA, obviously a guy that you know very well. Leon Edwards, putting together a nice streak. Who do you have sort of winning this weekend if you had to sort of put your analyst hat on?
I would have to go with RDA. I feel like his experience, especially, and he's fought so many guys. I mean, he fought me, obviously. He's fought Kamaru. He's fought Khabib. He's fought like every top contender that you can. If you name him, he's already fought him. Nate Diaz, Anthony Pettis, all these, Donald Cerrone, everybody that you name, he's already beat. So I just feel like that experience is going to be way too much for a guy like Leon. Leon's going to show up, and he's going to show up in shape. And RDA has been taking some damage, so there's a little bit there, but RDA's experience should win it for him for sure.
And while we're getting sort of predictions, and this one is a little bit down the line, but how do you think Dustin Poirier matches up with Khabib? Obviously, he's matching up with him soon. People sort of wondering if he's the man to sort of do it. Do you think he could beat Khabib and become champ?
To be honest, that's such a great fight. It really is. Like, before, if you would have asked me this a year ago, I'd have said no way. Like, Dustin's gonna get blown out the water. But I've counted him out so many times, and he's actually he's risen to the occasion. I think he's solid. He's fought a lot of 55ers now, and he's a real 55er. I feel like so size won't really play too much of a factor. I think the biggest factor is he moves very well. He's gonna move in circles around a guy like Khabib who's kind of on one track. Can Khabib pressure him back to the fence and get his hands wrapped around him? I don't know. It's a big question. So if you got to make me choose, and I'm a betting guy or something like that, and I'm choosing, I'm gonna probably go with the safe bet and say Khabib. But I wouldn't be surprised if Dustin really give him a run for his money and might even be able to steal some rounds, especially them later rounds. Dustin might be able to squeeze out 3, 4, and 5 in order to take it home.
I mean, you've sort of spoken about the guy. You're the guy to sort of beat Khabib. Would you be disappointed if someone gets around to defeating him before you got your chance to match up with him and do it?
Yeah, I would be. You know, I'm gonna keep it real with you. I would be. I'd be disappointed. I'd be. You know, there's another one that kind of slipped through my fingers. You know, the same thing happened to me when Sage Northcutt, you know, on his little come up. I was like, man, I want to be the one just to show the people. And then when he started taking L's, I kind of it like slips right through your fingers. Khabib is gonna be the same way, except a whole different level. I would love to be the one to take that O from him. But if I'm staying real, I lost the fight, and it ain't nobody's fault but my own. So who else can I blame for that?
Kevin, we could chat to you all day, man, but we don't want to be too greedy with your time. We'll end it on this. Just quickly, I know you don't have an opponent in mind, but timeline-wise, when do you think we'll see you fighting again? What's the ideal time frame for you?
October. October is where it's at. That's what we're looking at. We're trying to right now figure out location and what card. I think a pay-per-view makes a lot of sense. I think there's one here in Vegas. So a homecoming in Vegas always sounds good. But then again, there's a San Francisco card in October. It's a lot going on. So October is when I'm looking at. You know, there's a growing process every time you're working with a different camp and working with different training partners and having that communication with a different coach. But we'll get it together and that'll be the next road in the comeback.
Oh, man, October. That's the one that was supposed to be in Australia. Don't break our hearts. Kevin is telling us it's officially in Vegas. No, it's all good. We'll put it like this.
You never know.
He could potentially be fighting in Australia or Las Vegas. Let's leave it like that for the pay-per-view in October, UFC 243. Kevin, we could talk to you all day, man, but we'll let you go. Of course, follow the man on Twitter and Instagram at Motown Phenom. He doesn't post frequently, but if he does, it's worthwhile, you know?
Well, when I do, the comeback will be real.
Awesome, man. Looking great, Kevin. Thank you so much for jumping on the program, man.
Always, my man. Always. Thank you.
What's up, guys? This is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Well, this is always a very, very special treat. Our next guest is Australia's undisputed UFC middleweight champion, taking on Israel Adesanya, UFC 243 in October. He joins us back on the program after a quick trip to the US. The Reaper himself is back in the house. Robert Whittaker, look at you. Thank you so much for joining us on Submission Radio. Good morning.
It's always good to be here, guys.
Always fun chatting with you, man. Really appreciate you giving us the time. And like Dennis mentioned, we saw that you went down to the States for a little bit, took the wife down there, got to enjoy International Fight Week. What was the big trip to the US like for you?
Yeah, no, it was great. It was great. You know, I was lucky I was able to take my wife because it was such a short trip. I think it was 5 days, like in total. So I was able to take my wife, and we have guys there, connections there, like Sergio Pena, who I do jiu-jitsu with, so that if I do get time, apart from the UFC scheduling that they put me under, I can roll and I can work with those fellas. So it was a great trip. All in all, it was great to get away. We left the kids here, so that's always a good trip.
Nice. Look at you, man. I was gonna ask because I know that I know a few times when you've spoken, like after your wins, like you just get out of Vegas, you get out of there. There's no crazy partying for you. So I was gonna ask if you sort of got a chance to like do some fun things, but you were probably busy training, right? You had the coaches there already.
Yeah. So more or less, the UFC have an itinerary for me whenever I go to these things, and it's pretty full on. It's pretty full on. Plus, I'm one of the few guys that gets. I know there's a lot of people that fly to Europe or fly to the US, and they're like, I don't believe in jet lag. Like, I don't believe in jet lag. It doesn't affect me. It affects me. I believe in it thoroughly. So, yeah, I don't sleep on planes. So when I got there, the first day is a write-off. The second day is filled with media. The third day, I try to get some sessions in. You know, fourth day is usually media again, and then the fifth one, I'm leaving.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. And you're probably flying in a better situation than us. When we do the events, we're like trying to find an empty aisle on an Air United plane. And I'm making deals with some family to see if the father can move over to the back seat so that we could sleep before media. Hey, I was going to say, man, one of the crazy things is, Rob, obviously you're sort of in your own world in Sydney, but when you go over to these international fight weeks, you're kind of hanging around all the champions, all these different fighters that you wouldn't usually hang around. I'm just wondering, what are some of the highlights of sort of hanging around International Fight Week in terms of running into other fighters and having chats with other champions? Because I saw you had a photo with Khabib. I mean, me and Casper met Khabib. He's an intimidating guy, but he was nice. Talk to us through meeting some of these other champions and some of these sort of interactions that you had during the fight week.
I guess, like, first
did
and
you
foremost,
speak to Khabib or?
Yeah, I did. So, like, I'm not a huge fan of meeting fighters in general, like meeting other fighters and like these International Fight Week and going to events, especially in the US. It's always different for me because we do live here in Australia, like across the world. It's hard. I'm not exposed to it a lot, and I'm very reserved. So I don't get out a lot to go see other fighters. And there's just always tension. I don't know. It's hard to explain because the game we're in is combat, and that makes it very. How do I put it this way? You don't just. It's hard to just win and beat people and then understand that you put a tally on the board. No, it's like to beat and to win your fights or to beat your opponents. You're trying to inflict harm and try to break down your opponents. So that makes the game a little bit more real, in my opinion. So there's underlying tension regardless, across the board, especially. And then you have teams where this guy may be affiliated with this guy who you fought, or you may have beat a teammate of his, like somewhere down the track, especially when you move to the US. Those guys have a lot of teams, and they have teams with 3 or 4 fighters in the UFC, maybe more. Whereas in Australia, like with my team, we're still upcoming. There isn't any other UFC fighters in my team yet. Trust me, yet. But so there's that tension as well. And then if there's middleweights, it's like there's going to be tension.
So that was guys in other weight classes. That wasn't even getting to middleweights yet.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, exactly that. That's guys in other weight classes because the teams and affiliations and just all that sort of stuff. It's it's a lot more. There's a lot more to it, and that's just me though. That's just me. Like there are some really social guys out there that can just slide into any scene out at the UFC with any fighter. Even a fighter they may have to fight and just chill out and cruise out and be real chummy. Who's a good example of that is Wonderboy Thompson. He's a top guy. Like I don't think anyone could have a beef with him. Like he's a legend, and I feel like he could enter any scene and just be cool. You'd be like best mates in like a few minutes. But that's not me. That's not me. I can't play like that.
Sorry, go on.
But in regards to Khabib and Holloway, I spoke to them, and they're just straight guys. They're just really good people. Obviously we didn't sit down over dinner and have a thorough discussion on why we should like each other. But I like those guys. I think they're good guys, straight guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting one that you mentioned because I almost feel like the other champions don't really get a chance to see you very often. So you're kind of like that guy that everyone's like, hey, look. There's Robert Whittaker. He's the middleweight champion. I wonder what he's like in person. We haven't really seen him around these neck of the woods before. But also, I think there's a lot of respect for what you've done in the division from guys like Khabib. And we were watching another great episode of Grange TV the other day when we caught that story about you and Kelvin having a chat. And one of the things that stood out to us was you mentioned leading to the fight, you didn't really like anything about him. You wouldn't even eat Mexican food. Yeah. Is that true, Rob? Because Mexican food is delicious. So this is
it is delicious, and it was a sacrifice I had to make. It was a sacrifice I had to make. I just couldn't. Yeah, I can't do it. Like it's just who I am. It's just the sort of guy I am. Like and I don't know why I do that. Maybe I'm crazy, but everything is about beating him. It's just him and everything that he's involved with or enjoys doing or likes doing, I hate doing at that point. So it's just I'm just funny like that. I'm funny like that. I forget who it was, but I like spearfishing. I'm terrible at it, but I enjoy going out there and attempting to get anything. But I remember one time, one of my opponents, Fab, come up to me and goes, "You know who else likes spearfishing?" I think it was Tavares. He goes, Tavares likes spear fishing.
No.
I was like, well, you just ruined that for me. I'm never spear fishing again. And I just wrote it off. And that's just how I am. That's just how I am. I don't know why I'm like that. It just is what it is.
So you say funny, but I mean, you've obviously had a lot of success. So, it's obviously something that's working for you. But this is a fascinating revelation because everybody knows you, in media day and stuff. You don't talk trash about anyone. I don't think you ever really have. But underneath the surface, there's kind of like this dark side where you and this is the stuff that we don't know, you've always said nice things about Calvin. Do you do that for every opponent? Because I imagine it must be harder for some guys, right? Like maybe for Israel it's easy, but for a guy like Rafael Natal, I imagine what you even find about those guys. But this is something that you do in order to win the fight, right? It helps you.
Okay, let me clear something up quickly. Just because I don't talk trash and I'm not mouthy and I'm not mouthing off like I'm in the schoolyard, doesn't mean I don't take this for what it is. I am doing everything in my power to break you because we are going to go fight in an octagon. And I don't play this. This isn't a game to me. I treat this as if this will be my last fight ever. And I always have. And I don't need a smack talk to get in that mind frame. I'm already there. We're gonna go fight to the death in 70 months time, and I'm gonna give everything I have. I just don't smack talk though. But don't misinterpret that for me not taking the fight seriously. You can see every one of my opponents when we have the first face off or when we come face to face after the fight's been announced, they know that okay, this guy isn't playing. I'm not playing. It's not a game.
Yeah, and that's just fascinating, man, because I do think a lot of people sort of misinterpret that because you're such a nice guy. Just quickly, before we do get to Vegas and you stare down with Israel, what are a couple of things that you're not doing ahead of this Israel fight that have been kind of ruined because Israel does them? Is there anything that popped up? I know Mexican food with Calvin. Is there anything with Israel? Posting memes? He never really posted memes, though. That's the thing. I don't know.
Yeah, no, not really. Not really. He
Are you much of a dancer? Do you dance?
No more crump dancing for Rob Whittaker.
Yeah. I've stopped crumping.
Well, you watch Anaheim, though, don't you? You watch a bit of Anaheim. Has he stopped you from watching your Anaheim leading into this fight?
Anaheim.
Anime.
Anime?
Oh my God!
Wow, that
is Whittaker of all people.
that is the weirdest way I've ever heard that said.
It's anime. I've been calling it Anaheim for 30 years. What?
Oh wow!
All right. Well, there you go. What do you think of that? Do you still watch your Dragon? You have your own anime that you watch, right?
I watch tons, but I can't give that up. That's
imagine there was an opponent that played video games. You'd be screwed.
He should give it up. But yeah. Also, I don't know why everyone calls me a nice guy. To be honest, but I'm not nice just because I'm not a dickhead. You know what I mean? I'm just normal. I'm just straight.
Is it annoying to you when they always... Because we call you a nice guy because, honestly, behind the scenes, you've always been a really good guy to us, personally. And we've heard lots of great stories about the stuff that you do behind the scenes and the person that you are. So that's obviously why we call you a nice guy. But I think a lot of fans will call you a nice guy because I guess you don't really talk trash and you sort of got that warrior spirit. But does it annoy you that people sort of kind of put you in that category?
It's a compliment. For sure, it's a compliment. But I feel like my whole thing wasn't to be like I want to be portrayed as this nice guy. I want to go out there and become a saint, or I want to go out there and it's like just do charity work in all my off time. I just don't want to be a shit person, which is funny enough a lot harder in today's day and age than it seems.
For yourself, or from your own personal experience, or just in general?
No, just in society in general.
Yeah.
Everyone, especially in the MMA game, everyone wants to jump on each other. They want to shit on each other. They want to try and instead of improving and building their own careers or improving the scene, improving the sport themselves, they'd rather shit on everybody around them. Yeah.
I was going to ask, you were talking about stare downs before. What did you see in Israel's eyes when you guys finally got to sort of face off and look into each other's eyes? And do you feel like he had that moment? You mentioned opponents see that you're not playing. Did you see that in his eyes?
Yeah, he definitely saw it. He saw I'm not playing. But he's a smart guy. He's a smart guy with a lot of experience. He already knew I'm not playing. He knew the stakes, and he knows how serious this fight is. He knows how hard I'm going to come out. Regardless of what he says, like that's just how it is. You don't get to where he is, you don't get to where he is underestimating everybody. He's had a lot of experience. To be honest, there wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot that I found out or that I saw, because I was ready for it all. I'm ready for this. I'm ready for. I've been training since as soon as I got better from Gaslam. I've been training. I've been in the gym working. As soon as I got better from the surgery. So and I'm hungry. As everyone likes to throw in my face, I haven't fought for over a year, and trust me, that affects me more than everybody else.
Well, sorry,
yeah, sorry. No, please.
No, I was going to say, you mentioned that, and this is something that I want to get back to Israel in a sec, but because you mentioned it, it's something that fans don't really understand, and you kind of talked about it in Grange TV a little bit, that you haven't fought in a year. What fans don't realize is you didn't get paid for your last fight, right? And as a guy that's got a young family, and we're not saying you're broke or anything like that, obviously you've got a lot of stuff going on, but as a guy that's trying to build a future for his family, you got your kids, the wife, you want to build a good future for them. How sort of stressful is it, the fact that you haven't been able to fight for that year, you haven't been able to get paid for a year, you sort of missed a year out of your career and the ability to earn that money, and then just as you were about to make that money, just as you were about to go in and fight, boom, you have that surgery, don't get paid for the whole lead up into that fight. I mean, from a financial standpoint, that must be also very frustrating for you.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. I think a lot of the fans don't realize that the person who gets affected most by missing fights is me. I don't get paid. I can't move forward in my career. I can't use the skill sets that I've done. I can't pay for all the training that I implemented and did during the camp towards the fight. It's I am the main person that gets affected by missing fights. So it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant. It's terrible. Now, lucky I have great people around me, and I have a great circle of coaching staff and friends and like all the people that support me, like my accountant and managers and stuff. Like they're switched on. They're very switched on. So I'm not running out of money before I next fight. I'm not living fight to fight. So it's terrible, but it is what it is. It's part of the game. You have to expect that sometimes. Moving forward, I would like to fight more often. I would like to fight like 3 to 4 times a year. But just the way it's played out in the last year and a half, 2 years, I haven't been able to do that.
I think the fans, especially the Aussie fans, would love it to see you more active. And I guess that's definitely a tough thing that we can understand that you've been going through for a while now. Just going sort of back to Vegas, I remember when we sat down with you in Adelaide, I want to say around about a year ago, and we spoke to you about meeting Israel for the first time, and he was still sort of coming up in the division, but it seemed like people already thought, look, one day you guys will meet. And we talked about your first interactions. You just met him. He said that you smelled nice. What is it like now when you guys are around each other? How different is that? I imagine there was way less tension when you guys first ran into each other in the hallway that time.
Yeah. The thing is, I haven't done anything differently. I haven't changed. He's just he's gotten mouthy. Like I guess he had to get the title shot, which he got due to his performances in the octagon and the way he sells his fights, which is all props to him. I think that's great the way he did it. And that's kind of how he sells fights and how he does stuff. But like that's him though. Like I'm not I'm not playing like that. You know, if we're not cool. Like, you can sell the fight, and I'm happy for you to sell the fight. Actually, like, I encourage it, but I'm not a part of that little game. You know, we're not cool.
So, but by you mentioned, like, saying you're not cool, like, what do you mean? Do you mean like behind the scenes, you're not sort of in on this kind of trash talk thing, or do you mean like we're not cool, like after the fight, like what he says sort of matters? So take us into what you mean by we're not cool.
Yeah, no, like we're not cool as in I'll be civil. Like, what am I, an animal? Like, I'll be civil around him, but I don't want to talk to him. And yeah, we're not friends.
I wanted to ask you something and sort of give you a chance to sort of, I guess, respond, because something that he said when he was on our program last time was, I guess he's sort of running with the fact that he believes you're not the real champion because you won the interim belt, the title got changed to undisputed when GSP decided to vacate, and he's kind of building a case for himself to enter this fight as an equal champion. And he's referring to it himself as the champion. He doesn't really mention the interim champion. What do you sort of make of this whole, I guess, strategy?
I don't care. Like, yeah, I don't, like, it doesn't bother me. He can do whatever he wants. There's only going to be one after the date. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think most interim champions just call themselves champions. I think it's what they want to do. Like, but it is what it is. You know, it's yeah, that's just, it is what it is. He can call himself whatever he wants.
And it's not like you wouldn't have preferred to fight a GSP. I mean, a lot of people would have wanted to see that fight. So it's not like you were like, hey, let's not fight GSP. I'll just take this title if he vacates. But I'm just wondering, we saw what happened at the press conference, but we know you guys would have been around each other in the back of the arenas, you know, during fight week, you know, in between situations. So did you have any opportunity? Did he run into you? Did he say anything to you off camera? Did you guys have any run-ins outside of what we saw on the UFC YouTube channel?
No, we try to stay separated.
Wanted to also ask you, because something that, I guess, something big that's happened. When you were on the show last time, you spoke about how you threw your hat in the ring, so to speak, to face Jon Jones at some point. And Israel's obviously expressed his interest in facing Jon Jones somewhere down the line. Him and Jon Jones obviously, you know, aren't great friends either. They don't seem cool. But Jon Jones has kind of aligned himself with you, even sort of suggesting that he'd love to train you and help you beat Israel Adesanya. What did you think about that when you saw that and him offering, you know, his services to help train with you?
Yeah, it was cool. You know, I was honored that Jon would extend that hand to me. He's a great fighter. And yeah, you know, it was cool. It was cool.
Do you think you'd take him up on his offer? Do you need a Jon Jones in any training camp, or would you want a Jon Jones in any training camp in any kind of way, or do you see it more as I guess publicity sort of on his end?
It might have been publicity. The thing is, he doesn't really need publicity from that. It's more like I have guys that can move like Adesanya now. They can if I need it. And another thing is, like, Jon lives all the way in the States, and I'm here in Sydney. So yeah, you know, if our paths cross somehow, like, I'd love to take him up on some training. I think that'd be great. I think he'd be a great body to move with. But we'll have to wait and see.
Did you guys run into each other during fight week? Obviously, he was busy preparing for his fight, but did you see him in the back? Did you have any conversations with him?
No, we didn't. We didn't come across each other. He was focusing on obviously on his fight that week.
Well, speaking of that fight, just quickly, I mean, what did you make of his fight with Thiago Santos? I know that on Grange TV you mentioned that you saw him winning the fight when you were watching it live, but there have been some people that sort of have come out of the woodwork. A lot of fans thought he looked a little bit slower. Some people are sort of confused at the sort of strategy that he used to win the fight. And there are other people who believe Thiago Santos actually won. What did you think of the Jon Jones that you saw in there?
I thought Jones was just I think Jones wanted to showcase his skill set, throw out a lot of flashy stuff. In my opinion, he never looked like he was losing. He never looked like he was losing. He was pushing forward. He was landing like big shots, and he was slowly like dismantling Santos. The credit to Santos is that he didn't allow himself to fall into that pit of despair that I think a lot of other fighters get sucked into. He didn't allow himself to get swept up into like the Jon Jones aura and the flashy fighting that Jon Jones uses to really cripple his opponents. So credit to Santos. He's a tough guy. He did really well, remarkably well.
It's funny because Jon Jones is offering his services to you, but I don't think he realizes that you're not playing. You're not playing in this game. And so when you watch a fight like that, do you sort of analyze it? Like I said, you threw your hat in the ring to sort of face him potentially one day. Were you analyzing it, and did you sort of see certain things and certain holes where you thought, all right, if this move to 205 ever happens somewhere down the line, here's something I'm seeing that I could capitalize on?
Yeah, not yet. Like, I was just watching and appreciating the fight for what it was. I'm not trying to dissect every fight ever just in case I have to fight them. No, like I was very appreciative to how Jon does a lot of things well, like a lot of techniques, a lot of moves, a lot of movement patterns that he does really remarkably well. That I'll try and steal off him if I can. But yeah, I was just appreciating a great fight.
It's absolutely fascinating. Now, quickly before we wrap up, Rob, just want to get your thoughts on the location of this Israel Adesanya fight. Obviously, you know probably as much as we do. It's between Australia and America. A lot of people saying it's likely to be Las Vegas. But I just wanted to touch on the fact that you mentioned it in an interview with a friend of ours, Brett Okamoto from ESPN, that sometimes almost fighting in the States, there's a little bit less pressure in the sense that, you don't have your family there, you don't have your friends there. People aren't sort of calling on you to do a bunch of stuff. And even though we know you're not doing it yourself and you've got a management team around you, there's a bit more pressure sort of being the Aussie champion, defending in Australia. Just explain to us, is there a benefit to sort of fighting overseas for yourself sometimes in the sense that, you can just go over there, you can get the fight done, you can come back home? We're over fighting, for example, in Sydney or in Melbourne.
Yeah, it's exactly as you said. Like there's that element where I can just go overseas, focus on myself. It's usually just me and a tight knit crew, and just get the work done. So that in itself makes traveling to fight like a little bit easier in some respects, because if I fight in Melbourne or in Australia, it's there's like a lot of fans, a lot of people want to go. There's a lot of expectations, a lot of pressures that don't seem aren't there initially, but they creep up on you. So yeah, and there's usually a lot more media involved with fighting show, which is great. To have the support of Australia, like for my career is like, it's great. It really is. But yeah, it's just like, it is what it is. Like, both have their pros and their cons.
You mentioned stuff that creeps up on you. I'm just wondering, what do you mean by stuff that creeps up on you? And also, I know they'd kill us if we don't ask you. Do you have any updates on where it might be? Do you know? Are you any closer? Has the UFC been in touch? Would be any closer as to where the fight might take place?
Nah, no idea yet. No idea. I wish. It's funny. I usually find out after everyone else does. I find out on Instagram. Yeah. So yeah, so like in terms of things that creep on, it's just like the pressures of the crowd, the pressures of the fans. It just creeps up on you. Like everyone's talking about it, everyone's talking about you, everyone's wishing you well, and it's funny.
As we let you go, Rob, just really quickly, wanted to mention you've obviously got a training program. It's the GAP program. Just talk to us a little bit about that, just as we let you go, for those who haven't heard of it.
Yeah, so the GAP program is running now. We've launched our first one. The GAP program is Gracie Aboriginal Pathways program. We try to use jiu-jitsu, like through Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. We try to use jiu-jitsu as a conduit for education to try and get a lot of people who come from an Indigenous background and in remote communities or in New South Wales at the moment. We're hoping to move it further out, but we're hoping to we bring them in. And if you told me that like I could either study fitness in a classroom or study fitness on the mats, you know where you'd find me. You know, and I think that it's a great lure it's a great way to get people to get involved with education in the fitness aspect. And another great benefit is you get to almost join my team for the block. Like you're on the same mats with me. Usually our times cross a lot of the time. So you guys are the guys are always in the mats or watching the sessions, and sometimes they have input. Like Fab will get some suggestive input from the students and see why we do certain things the way we do it. And you know, it's you don't get that insight or that look elsewise.
I love it because you were overseas and you jump on your social media and you're like, just want to give a shout out to the GAP program. And I mean, you're in Las Vegas during International Fight Week and you're shouting out those guys. That must be a huge deal for those guys being like, all right, it's possible to do something with our lives. Look, the champ has given us a shout out from the biggest fight week in the world. I mean, I was like, man, I wish I was a part of the GAP program. But yeah, Robert Whittaker doing great things for the community. Guys, make sure to follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Robert Whittaker MMA. He defends his title against Israel Adesanya, UFC 243. We're hoping in Australia, but who knows? And of course, check out Grange TV. It's an underrated program where Rob has some really good interviews and some really good insights with a bunch of athletes and obviously himself. Make sure to check it out. It's one of the sneakiest shows going around, Rob. So we're trying to push it out there for you, buddy. Don't worry. We'll get it out there. You're taking over the world slowly. Thank you so much for coming to the program, champ.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, there you guys go. The UFC middleweight champion himself, the pride of Australia, Robert Whittaker, stopping back on Submission Radio. I said it at the top of the show. Rob's like an onion. A lot of layers. Every time he comes on, more of those layers get peeled off and you find out more about the guy. You can obviously do that by watching Grange TV, but I don't know, there's something special when he comes on Submission Radio and chats to us. I'm always fascinated by his mentality. I think because he's got this reputation of, you know, in media, in interviews, he keeps certain things close to the chest. He's not a trash-talking guy, and that's why when you do get some kind of information from him, when you do find out things about him, it just feels extra special. Right, Dennis?
Yeah, man. And yeah, as we roll towards Submission Radio 200, which just blows my mind, the fact that they've been around so much, it makes me think back to when we first interviewed him before. He was the first guy that we sort of did a live interview with. We flew to Sydney. This was before he moved up divisions. This was, you know, back when he was sort of on a little bit of a skid and trying to figure everything out, and just where he's gotten to. And I'm not saying we're the UFC middleweight champion or anything, but just the fact that we're still around as well and sort of doing our thing, it's kind of funny. Every time we speak, it's kind of like another notch on the belt, another kind of chapter in the story of the Robert Whittaker Submission Radio thing. I know people will say, oh, you guys have like an interesting dynamic. It's kind of like you guys sort of know each other, and we don't like hang out outside of this really with them, but we have sort of been there through both journeys together, if that makes sense. So it's kind of weird. Of course.
You know, I put up a picture on my personal Facebook a long time ago. It was like, 4 years, and I think we're coming up like 5 or 6 years, but it was like 4 years this day we interviewed Robert Whittaker. It was our first ever video interview. At the time, we had one microphone, and he was at welterweight. Now he's the UFC champion, and we have 2 microphones. So, yeah, I guess
who's the winner there?
I guess we've both gone on to
what
the
a
big
sucker.
things.
We've got 2 microphones. We're the real winners. But anyway, guys, as we wrap up, just a quick reminder, UFC 240 preview show coming at you next week. Enjoy the fights this weekend. Don't forget to check out the merchandise down below. Give us your comment, thoughts. And we will catch you guys for the big preview show next week.